Marry me, weirdos!
Hello.
I'm Gory B Movie.
And I'm Killer Kayla.
And this is Strange and Unusual Book Club, where every month we read books that are strange and weird and science fiction and thriller and horror.
Maybe a dragon.
And yeah, fantasy, all of the things.
Yeah, if we can find one.
Yeah. I mean, there's dragons in books.
Yeah, in some of them.
Yeah.
We try. We try really hard.
We do our best.
Yeah.
And we pick 4 books every month so that you get an array, but the idea is not that you have to read them all.
No.
That you could, pick which one you like, and I'm sure at least one of the books we read is interesting to you, or you could read none of them, and you could just discover new books through us and the reading we have done.
Yeah, and here are cool takes on things.
And look, Mummy B Movie's here, so
Hi,
it's
Mummy.
nice that she tore herself away from her busy life.
Thank you.
To watch our stream.
Considering we read her recommendation.
Yeah. So let us know. The books we read this last month were Rubbernecker by Belinda Bauer, Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton, I want to say.
You're very close if you're not
And,
correct. Yep, you're right. Good job.
Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by my personal favorite, Grady Hendrix. By the way, this is a beautiful signed copy.
Oh my gosh, so fancy.
We adore him. And this was only $30. He has a thing with Barnes & Noble and a lot of places where he signs a bunch of books and sells them. So that was pretty cool.
Fancy.
He is my favorite. I got a big collection of his books. And then
Bunny
by Mona Awad.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited to talk to you about these books. Let us know in the chat if you read any of the books this month. We've got Brandon Meacham here. I know he read a few of them. Fairpoint read Rubbernecker and Mickey 7.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. Also, every month, one of the books we pick is chosen by you guys in the chat. So this month, we read Rubbernecker, which was chosen by Mummy B Movie via Brandon.
Yeah.
She wasn't here.
But
she chose it the month before.
I'm going to say technically Doug picked Mickey 7.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
We got Jason here. Good to see you. Yes, I have heard the good Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival news. I am stoked. I've actually been planning a Buffy rewatch podcast. Making one and then also having it on YouTube. So kind of good timing. Brandon read Bunny, and he's still reading Rubbernecker.
Nice.
Heather read a lot of them. She read Bunny, Mickey 7, and is about 40% through Witchcraft for Wayward Girls.
Girl, hang on.
Oh my god, have all the emotional support. It's so heavy, but it's so good. Yeah, it's all the feelings.
I feel like I'm going to say it's probably one of the most important books ever written in history.
And that's what's so crazy about it is he is so good at writing these monumental books about women, of all ages and, different time periods through history. And, he's a man. And it's kind of reminds me how, S.E. Hinton wrote Outsiders, which she's a woman. She wrote that about men. But it's kind of that great coming-of-age novel for boys.
Yeah.
Grady Hendrix, all of his. I actually read an interview with him, and they asked why his characters tend to be female, and he says he doesn't want to just write himself in a fiction suit, and so usually that gives him a little bit of distance. And he comes from a very big Southern family of women, and he wants to, I think, you know, kind of show some of that.
That's a really good way of saying it, because I do find if I'm reading a book and it's written that way, where it's like you in a fiction suit, I tend to be more irritated with the protagonist than I should be.
I think it's harder for them to be non-biased in what happens to that character, too. Like, a lot of people have mentioned that with Twilight, which I like the Twilight books, unpopular opinion, but she has the same hair color as Stephenie Meyer. She looks a lot like her. She moved like Stephenie Meyer. It's based on a lot of Stephenie Meyer's experiences, and a lot of people think that, you know, it's basically her in a fiction suit. I think she kind of tried to make her more of like an every woman so that you could live vicariously through her.
Sure.
But I do see the criticism. Yeah. So, you know, I think it is a good way to go. I think one of the ones where he was going to have a male protagonist initially was one we haven't read yet, We Sold Our Souls, which was going to be a lot about, like, male aggression and stuff. But then he was like, no, I'm going to change it to a female guitarist.
Okay.
We love you, Grady.
Yeah, we do.
And Mummy B Movie read Rubbernecker again.
Nice.
Okay, so let's just get into it.
Yeah.
We're going into our library. We have a little spoiler alert thing too, which we don't usually get into spoilers. So you're pretty safe here, but I know for Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, I'm going to want to talk spoilers. So we will throw up that sign when it's time. I think the first book we're going to talk about today is Rubbernecker.
Yeah.
So I listened to the audiobook for this, and the audiobook, I wish I could remember the name of the, I'm going to look it up. The audiobook narrator, I was really impressed because the characters are Welsh.
He did a great job.
They're all from Wales, and he's English, so he did a fantastic Welsh accent. I thought he was just really lovely, and I really like, I've never been to Wales. You know, it's a different country than England, everybody. Just throwing this out there. A lot of people get this right. Wales is a different country than England. But they are our neighbors in the same way that Americans are neighbors to Canada. And I've always wanted to go there because it's just, you know, pictures I've seen are like beautiful country, and the people there are just, I don't know, they seem kind of fun and quirky.
Can I tell you something really embarrassing?
Yes.
Okay. So when I was growing up, you know how when you're driving around, there's like a bunch of canyons around here? And so you see like whatever CYN for canyon. I always thought that it was a Welsh thing. Like, like I don't know how you would say it in Welsh, but it looks like a Welsh word.
Like how they write, a lot of their names are so hard to pronounce. Like how they spell Rhys, like RHYSS.
Yes.
Like Welsh names are impossible.
So until I was probably 16, I didn't know that CYN was short for canyon. I thought it was some weird Welsh.
I think I just
naming
learned that
of
from
American
you,
streets.
like literally just now. I think I just got the information.
That makes me feel better.
I'm learning things, guys. This show's educational. So yes, thank you, Brendan. It is Andrew Wincott. So he reminded me. His voice reminded me of almost a little bit of like Ringo Starr.
Yeah. Okay.
From when he did Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
So I really liked him. I thought his Welsh accent was pitch perfect. I loved the characters in this. The characters really feel alive, and I was so impressed because just like how Grady Hendrix writes women very well, there's a lot of male characters in this, and I feel like Belinda Bauer had a really good understanding of all of her characters.
I feel like all of the characters in this were really different and distinct. Like, I can't tell you every single person's name, but I know like each character stood on their own, and they each probably had their own cool backstory too. Like all the women, all the men, like it was a really, really well done character.
And that's one of the things that makes this, I mean, I do think the mystery is kind of a backseat to the characters, because the mystery really takes off in the second half of the book. In the first half, it's really setting up all the players, but that makes it really interesting because then you're like, okay, why are we learning so much about this character? Is it a red herring? And there are a few red herrings in there. Like initially... we'll get into what the plot is in a minute in case you're confused. But initially there is a character who's in a coma and I'm like, oh, I bet they're a killer. I bet they're the killer and that's why they haven't caught them because they're in a coma. Like I was so ready to hate this person. And
I was very confused. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? And then like you learn how it like... It all
that's
ties
why
together,
I was like,
but...
What is this? A lot of them, you're kind of like, okay, what does this have to do with anything? But the thing was, I was never bored, which is really cool, because in a lot of stories, I would be kind of like, okay, well, get on with it. What does this have to do with it? But she really is just like, okay, here are all these different people, and then we're going to converge them in the center.
Yeah.
But I was very interested in all of their individual stories, and they do all converge in the second half, which is cool. So, Rubbernecker, do you want to talk about the plot?
Yeah, so... our main character is Patrick, and he is on the spectrum. At the time the book was written, it was called Asperger's. I don't know if that's used as much anymore.
Not so much.
Not so much. It's an autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah, most people just say it's a spectrum, so there are different levels of the spectrum.
So that's how he's classified.
But it was accurate for the time.
For the time, he was diagnosed with Asperger's, but he is also a savant. Like, he's super smart, but just doesn't have those emotional cues. And he was really, really close to his dad. His dad really understood him and defended him, and something happens and his dad dies, and it's just him and his mom. Well, he also decides he wants to study biology, like human biology. He will tell you quickly, he's not a medical student.
No, he has no desire to be a doctor, and people are baffled.
No, he is studying biology.
Yes, he just wants to...
He wants to know the secrets of the human body. And so it's kind of this relationship with him and his mom, and him, in this biology, like, what do they call that? What's the word for that?
It's funny because I actually used to work in a building where you had all the cadavers. So it's like a cadaver lab. Yeah. But basically they get cadavers, and then they're given certain tasks where they have to open up the bodies.
And figure out the cause of death.
Yes. So,
anatomy.
It's like
Thank
anatomy.
You.
So, yeah, we have a lot of different characters. So we've got Patrick. Patrick, he's the one she just talked about with autism. And then it also talks a lot, we get into like his mom and stuff, and his fellow
She's a piece of work.
Oh my gosh, we'll talk about her. Then some of the ones that seem kind of random is you have this person who's speaking first person from the perspective of they're in a coma. I did not know until I read this book that there were different levels of coma. I thought you were either in a coma or you were out of a coma. Apparently, you can be stuck in a state where you're conscious, but you cannot move or speak. There are different levels. A lot of them moan and twitch, and it just sounded awful.
It did. It sounded like a nightmare.
Truly. Like, I knew about locked-in syndrome, but I didn't know that could also be a part of coming out of a coma. I thought that you just woke up, and it's really sad and very, very tragic.
Yeah.
So this person's in a coma, and their story is not too long after they're awake, one, they cannot move, so nobody knows they're awake, but they do witness a murder, and they don't really know who did it. So they know that they could potentially be in danger, and they also are trying to tell people, but they have no ability to speak or even move. Nobody even knows they're alive in there. Well, they know they're alive. They don't know that they're conscious.
Well, and some of the nurses in this ward are like not professional. They don't care, and they have really bad attitudes about their patients.
Yeah, there's one girl, Tracy. We spent a lot of time with her, and sometimes I would be like, okay, what's the point of this? Tracy's trying to seduce the husband of one of her patients, and she really... she ended up amusing me a lot, too, because she's just so uninvested. Like, a lot of times they use this device where their blinks, they can kind of type out a word. And, like, one of them, the person was clearly trying to say that they were thirsty. And I can't remember. She thought they were trying to say Thursday. And it's just like, oh, I can imagine how frustrating that would be. Tracy was awful.
Like, clearly I'm not talking about Thursday.
Yes, Tracy was terrible. But I think that is something that they would deal with. Speaking of that, my mom says it's the Glasgow coma scale from 3 deep coma to fully awake. So, yeah, a lot of people are somewhere in between there. And, there are also people who care very deeply about their patients and such, and the different kinds of family members that show up. Like, some people are trying to cook bacon to remind them, and just some people just feel like they're just kind of doing their time.
Yeah, some people are there and they're just working on their laptop while they're their person's in a coma or whatever. And
fascinated by this coma story, so it would go to him and I'd be really invested. Then we go to Patrick, but I didn't. A lot of times when books do this, I'm like, oh, I want to go back to that other thing, but no, I really was interested in Patrick too. And Patrick, I think what I like about Patrick so much is he is so earnest. He genuinely wants to do the right thing. He doesn't want to offend anybody. He processes things differently. And one of the things I like is he's like, I can't abide pointless statements. Like when people say things and they expect you to respond, he just doesn't see the point in it.
It's not what he's here for.
But it doesn't mean that he's callous. And I think she did such a great job of describing somebody with autism, because a lot of people think that means the person has no emotions, and they do. They feel sadness and pain and anger, but they do not express it in the same way, and they do not pick up on the cues of other people's emotions the same. So people can be very mad at him, and a lot of times he just is kind of confused. He does not understand.
Well, because people aren't being direct with him either.
Yes.
Like, in our day-to-day lives, especially in, like, a professional or academic situation, there's a lot of beating around the bush. Like...
He doesn't do games and stuff. You have to be very straightforward. One of the things I really liked as this character, who's pretty awful, but she's just, she just kind of like uses him for a place to stay and stuff. But she's also, I do think he kind of likes her because she is pretty direct. Yeah. She will be like, they'll be like, oh, we really need you to go. And she'll be like, can you make me a cup of tea? And he'll be like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
He also doesn't get really offended or anything either. And so his mom is extremely frustrated because she wants that child who's going to listen to her woes and who's going to be emotionally there for her, and she's not really accepting Patrick for who Patrick is.
She has a lot of expectations of him, and they're not, I don't think they're fair as a mother.
No, they're not.
And not fair as like as a person, but especially as a mom. Like, the things that she's wanting from her son are so unfair and inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't stand her. From the very beginning, I could not stand this woman.
She's just very, like, she'll tell him, and he does his best, but she really is just not accepting Patrick for who he is. And she's constantly about how she has been put out.
Yeah.
Whereas Patrick, I think the reason he misses his dad so much is his dad got it. His dad just understood, you are Patrick, you are uniquely you. He would get sometimes frustrated with, miscommunications and such, but he understood Patrick, and that's why Patrick likes to go to the dog races, I think, or horse races?
Some kind of races.
Some kind of racetrack he goes to because that's where his dad needs to go. But yeah, his biggest thing is a lot of times when someone dies, people have a lot of platitudes like, well, they just went through a door. And people are telling this to Patrick when he's young, and he's like, okay, well, where's the door? Can we go open it and get my dad?
Yeah.
He does not understand how a person can be alive 1 second and then they're gone. And that is why he goes into this anatomy thing, because he figures inside the brain, he's going to see, okay, that's the switch.
Yeah.
We can turn that back on. He wants to understand where a person goes essentially when they die, because people just keep telling him all this nonsense. At least to him, it's nonsense, like going through a door and stuff. He's like, okay, well, where's the door? Like, just be direct with him. And then, the saddest part is I think they finally opened up something. He's like, oh, it's just more flesh and stuff. Like, it's not the big revelation that he wanted. And
because that's how he's processing his grief too, right? Like, he doesn't get it. But, like, he's not letting himself get it either. Like, he doesn't want his dad to be really gone either, I don't think. Because part of it, too, is, like, he feels like it was his fault, right? Because they were crossing the street, and, if he hadn't been crossing the street,
Well, Patrick was, he had to come pick Patrick up because Patrick had an episode.
Right.
And Patrick was, very upset.
Yeah.
And so the father was just like, come on, let's go. And then he got hit by a car because he wasn't watching.
Yeah. So that's part of Patrick's problem too, is he has guilt. Like, he feels like he's to blame. Like, he did something that if he would have done something differently, maybe his dad would still be there too. But
the cool thing about Patrick is he does not just accept nonsense. He wants actual answers. And so they're in this anatomy class, and they're told that with their body, one of the girls is like, we're going to name it. So he's like, I don't understand that. But he's like, he just wants to determine the cause of death. And he gets very upset because he thinks he's determined the cause of death, and he's told by their instructors that's not true. And he's like, well, no. That's nonsense. And he realizes that the instructors are covering up the cause of death. And that is the mystery. So we don't get into that until a little past the quarter mark. So I'm not going to give you any spoilers about this. But yeah, it's kind of a coming of age story, like a young adult coming of age. It's really, I think, mostly about like Patrick's journey, but it's also about kind of how people handle grief, and not just the grief of somebody passing away, the grief of like somebody being in a coma, the grief of basically not being able to have the relationship you had with somebody, or even, I guess for the mom, I think it's also grief of like her expectations. She expected her son to be a certain way. Yeah. And she's grieving that she didn't get to have that relationship with the son that she wanted.
And then when the dad dies, and then she has to do it all by herself, that's hard for her too, for many reasons. And yeah, that kind of grief too. Like, how her life just didn't turn out the way she was hoping it would, I guess. But yeah, it was good. It was a great book. What did you end up rating it?
Huh?
What did you rate
I
it?
gave it 4 stars.
I think I did too.
So I'm looking at what the chat saying, because I know a lot of you read this.
Busy.
Fairpoint says, the mother is arguably more self-centered than Patrick, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't really think Patrick's self-centered. I think he just has a really hard time, like, understanding, like emotions and such. But I do think he strives really hard to make other people happy, even though he doesn't quite understand it. Like, his mother gives him a gift, and he doesn't say anything. She's like, well, you're supposed to say thank you, Patrick. And he's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But then he's like, okay, so he processes that, well, when people give you a gift, you're supposed to do something. So, but he also continues to do it. You know, like, he doesn't understand the reason he has to call his mom every week, which that one I get. Like, it's your kid. So he thinks it's kind of pointless, because they don't really talk about anything. Yeah. But he's like, my mother wants this. It will make my mother happy. So I will do this thing. So I think in his way, he does show that he cares.
Yes.
Hi, Nellie. That's Zigma's new snake.
Ooh.
So Brandon said, I loved learning about anatomy, too, in school. Not so much the brain, but how the organs function together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was just thinking about this yesterday, because I was watching a movie that had, like AI in it. And how, essentially, like, if you look at something like Megan or something like Chucky, it's not really much different than us. We're basically a bunch of pieces of meat that are connected and made sentient by firing electrons and such, by electricity. So are we really all that different than maybe a high-functioning, like, AI?
I will absolutely accept my cyborg body when the time comes. Yeah. I don't need this.
Mom says, Patrick feels his dad was the only one that understood him. His mom just wants him to be normal. Yeah, and... Oh, yeah. I wore this for Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Girls will be girls.
That's what we do.
Yeah, Misery is awesome.
Yeah.
So, let us know. What did you guys rate Rubbernecker, those of you who read it? Something that's really exciting. So, Belinda Bauer, she is English, and I believe I read on GOODREADS that she grew up in South America partly. I think my mom said she also, like, lived in Australia or, something. Anyway, she writes a lot of mystery-type thrillers, and she never goes back to characters in a previous book. So my mother was quite upset. Mommy B Movie was upset because she loves Patrick Fort, the boy in this. But Patrick's coming back, guys. There's a book coming out by Belinda Bauer called The Impossible Thing. Cool. In April, and I just got the ARC from NetGalley, so if you're on NetGalley, you can get that. But yeah, Patrick will be back, and this one's gonna be set in Yorkshire, which isn't too far away from Wales.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's definitely one of those things like House or that other doctor, the Good Doctor kind of a show where, like, you have this he's a savant. He picks up on clues like Sherlock in a way that, like, you wouldn't normally, and I think that there's a lot that she can do with this character.
I think so too, because that's why he's kind of the perfect person to solve this mystery, because he's noticing things that other people aren't. So whereas, like, one of his friends in his group, one of his fellow students, she's very wrapped up on who was this person before. Well, we need to name him, we need to honor him, and I understand that, but Patrick, he's not seeing that. He's just seeing what is inside the body. And so they're missing a lot of things. Like this person saying it's heart trouble. He's like, I held that heart. There was nothing wrong with that heart. And a lot of people also are taught, listen to your instructors, listen to your parents, take their information, just accept that information. And Patrick doesn't. He will question authority.
Yeah.
So
yes, he will.
He's very cool. And it's some of it, it's just like any kind of thing where there's like misunderstandings and stuff or miscommunications. There's parts of this book that are very funny. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too.
One part, I know Patrick like makes a joke, and they're like, "Did you make a joke?" And he's like,
"Yeah."
He's so proud of himself.
I know I talk about it a lot, but this book did give me similar vibes as The Casual Vacancy. Right? J.K. Rowling. Mostly the one girl character who was crashing at his house.
Yeah, I thought she was really funny.
I liked her too. She reminded me a lot of one of the characters in The Casual Vacancy.
She was a trainer act.
Yeah.
She was a trainer.
But I loved her.
Yes.
Yeah. She was doing her
But she was pretty funny. She was doing the best she could, but she was a hot mess. His high school, Robin's high school team were also the Wildcats. I went to the same college. And then one of the high schools here was the Wildcats too. That's where Danny
I feel like Wildcats is a pretty popular
I mean, when you think
mascot.
about Washington ones, because that's the Wildcats. And then the other one we have...
the Cougars.
The Cougars, that's a type of Wildcat.
Yeah. And I mean, High School Musical, they're the Wildcats.
They're the Wildcats. Oh my gosh. Who are we? The Wildcats.
Yeah.
Who are we going against? The Wildcats.
It's all the Wildcats.
Fairpoint gave it 3.5. I think it was well written and had good characterizations. I agree. Mummy B Movie gave it a 5, and she's really excited.
Yeah.
Brandon went to a grade school that was the Wildcats. My grade school was the Crown Crickets. Never seen that one before.
The Crickets?
Crickets.
I love it. That's cute.
Awesome. Ghost Eaters. I actually just downloaded from Amazon a Clay McLeod Chapman book. I think it's called What Kind of Mother? But his books look pretty good. I thought this book was going to be low-key Patrick reanimating corpses.
That would have been great.
Yeah, he does kind of have a Herbert West to him. I think he's a lot sweeter than Herbert West. I think he definitely has a sweetness. But yeah, so let's move on to our next book.
Thanks, Mummy, for the recommendation.
So, recommendations from both of us.
Yeah.
I would recommend this to people who really want a mystery, but they really want it to be more character focused than plot focused.
I agree with that completely. 100%. You're a professional.
You're a professional.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I am, but not at this.
So now we're going to talk about Mickey is 7, and I see no reason to bring spoilers into this.
No, we don't need to. We can do
we're
this
not
without
going to get spoilery in this. We're going to get spoilery in some other stuff.
Yes, we will. So this is a movie that is coming out on March 7th.
We got to go see that.
Yes, I have it in my calendar. And the movie is Mickey 17 because they wanted to have
show more
deaths, which I think will be fun. I don't see why. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many Mickeys there are. Yes. Spoiler alert.
It's true.
He dies at least once.
So there's a spoiler.
A
lot of you guys read this one. I know Zigma read this. We read it.
We read it.
Your husband is almost done with it.
He started it. I'm gonna say he's like a third of the way through. But he was liking it. He just got busy with stuff.
Read it.
Yeah, so it was fun. I listened to the audiobook. And so it's the future, I think. Humans are not just on Earth, right? They're out colonizing other planets. And I loved that part of this book because he has this Mickey character. He has a lot of downtime. So he does a lot of reading about history and why they're colonizing the way they are. And that part of the story I really loved. I could easily watch a whole series on these colonizations. But he signs up to be a part of this colony, and what did they call him? An expendable?
He's an expendable.
He's an expendable.
Not like the action movie series.
Yeah, no.
Kinda.
But so they clone him, and he has to upload his consciousness every so often, and then when they use him to clean out a radiation tank or whatever, and he ultimately dies, he can come back. He gets these dangerous jobs.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of Alien Romulus in a sense, because where he was living isn't ideal. And he also got into some trouble. People were looking for him. So he really wants to go onto a colonization thing for this other planet, but it's highly desirable. So unless you're a mega genius, you're not going to go. So one of his friends, he does, or I think his girlfriend was the one who said she was studying to be a pilot since she was very young, because they know for years and years beforehand that there's going to be one of these things, and they want to get off the planet. And Mickey doesn't have any skills except for being a history buff.
It was the guy.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Anyway.
Don't remember.
Berta? No, I remember. Yeah. Anyway, I'm wrong.
Berto?
So, I think it's Berto.
Something like that.
Also, by the way, if you guys ever have trouble finding a copy of the book, just let me know. I'm usually pretty good at finding them. This one was available. The print version was available from Kindle Unlimited, so that's how I read it. And then I also listened to the audiobook.
Yeah. I did get this
good.
one in time through the library, but I had already read it by the time the copy became available through the library.
So, yeah, Mickey, his best friend's also going too. So Mickey, they basically have him, they make him do a lot of grunt work because he's kind of the lowest on the totem pole in the ship. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if they want to know, like, what does this virus do? Or will this cure work for somebody? They put him through it.
But it's expensive to bring him back. It's work. So it's not just like he can just die and it's no big deal.
No.
They're like low on food, so they bring his body back and like recycle it usually, not only to recreate him, but to like feed so the people.
It's expensive, so when he dies, the body must be recovered.
Yes.
And that's turned into a food paste, which is kind of the nastiest thing you can eat on the ship, but it is sustenance. Yeah. There are other things, like you can get tomatoes or sometimes rabbit, but it costs a lot more money, and they're so low on food. Hello, Brocky. They're so low on food that their people who are in charge of the ship are cutting down the allotment, like of calories they're allowed to have a day. So the plot of this one, like where it all goes wrong, is Mickey, well, one thing I should mention is, yes, they have this ability to clone people, but there are strict rules for it, because there was one guy who created a planet of just his clones, and he was nearly unstoppable. Yes. So there cannot be duplicates. That is completely forbidden, not only because of the things that happened with this previous guy, but also because that person is a drain on resources, and resources are limited.
Very precious.
So, at the very start of the book, Mickey, he's, the planet they're on is largely covered in snow, and he falls down a very deep hole. It is his friend's job to recover him. That is his job. And he basically is like, nah, dog, that looks too dangerous. And he's like, are you kidding me? And you're not gonna even like stay here and like make sure I get out? He's like, no, I'll come back for your body later. Like, he's pretty callous about it. And this is something that Mickey holds a grudge on for a very long time, because it's supposed to be his best friend. He's like, it's fine, you're unexpendable, you'll be reanimated. And he's like, yeah, dying hurts. Yeah. But then Mickey's girlfriend comes and she's like, I'll get you. But because she loves him, and I think because she's willing to get him, he's like, no, I'll be fine.
I'll figure it out.
Like, yeah, it's more that the other guy wasn't even willing to. Yes. And it's also his job. Yeah. So yeah, he and then she leaves, and then one of the creatures on this planet just kind of takes him like a spider in the house and tucks him outside. So he is alive. And he returns to the ship, and there's Mickey 8 in his bed.
And this happens in the this is the
very beginning. This is not spoilers.
No, this is not a spoiler. This is the story. So the creatures that are on this planet, in my mind, I kind of imagine them as like praying mantises, but I think that they're probably
they're
bulkier
called creepers.
Than that.
I kept having a hard time not picturing creepers from Minecraft.
Oh, funny. See, I was on the bug train.
Yeah, I was thinking like Starship Troopers, like cockroachy types. I was picturing cockroachy types. Yeah. But yeah, so one, they've invaded this planet. So there's a lot. This book, it's a science fiction fantasy. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but there is a lot to unpack here. They have invaded this planet.
They are colonizers
without any permission whatsoever, and the native race they're eradicating. So, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack there, but the biggest question I think the novel tries to explore is essentially, if we were cloned, is it still you? Essentially, if you used all the exact same pieces, like one by one, I just replaced pieces of Kayla, like her arm, with a perfectly normal, exact copy of her arm, and then I replaced her heart and her, all of this stuff. At what point does it ever stop being Kayla? Yeah. If I replaced her exact same brain, is it still Kayla? Yeah. And that's what he's wondering. And he kind of, he's told he's, immortal, that he's essentially living forever. But he realizes through interacting with Mickey 8, they're not the same.
No, they're very different.
They are very different. Yeah. If you watch the trailer for Mickey 17, they even speak different. Yeah. And so then he's a lot more afraid of dying, because he realizes this is it for him. When he dies, yes, he may be cloned, but there was only one of him.
Yeah. And he's like 6 weeks old or whatever the case may be. He's like, my life is so short. And it is really, there are a lot of really neat themes in this book. Like a lot of things that you could take and really think philosophically about.
Yeah. If you want, I like books like that where you can enjoy it on the surface level, but if you want to get deep, Mickey 7 has the... it has room to get deep.
Yeah, in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad that there is a sequel to this because I think there's a lot to explore here. This was a relatively short book. It was like, I don't know, like 200 and something pages. But there is a second book called Antimatter Blues. So I'm excited to explore that. And yeah, I got to the point too where initially I was like, well, I'm not going to get super attached to the characters because who cares? He just gets cloned. But then I was like, no. Mickey 7 is my boy.
He's our Mickey.
He's my Mickey. The other one's a different Mickey.
He's kind of a tool.
He is a tool. But for the most part, I really liked him. Now, I will talk about something I had an issue with this book. So I did ultimately give this book 3 stars.
Okay.
I did like it. I do think there's a lot here. However,
I think I gave it 3 stars too.
I feel like a big part of this book is exploring relationships of Mickey's that I did not care about. So Mickey has his best friend Berto. I think that's correct. Let me know if I'm wrong. And, you know, Fairpoint says Mickey goes deep, a little too deep in places. You know, definitely let us know what you guys thought of these, you know, stuff too,
give it 3 stars
as we're going with it. So he has his friend Berto, and I really liked his relationship with his girlfriend. She's been with him since he was Mickey 3, and there's one in particular where they've given him a virus and they're trying to find the cure, and she like holds him as he's dying and stuff, and she remembers all that. It's really awful.
It is really awful.
So yeah, he has another person who goes on missions with, and they're kind of setting up like kind of a romance there, and I really, really hated it because I was like,
oh, I hated that too.
I was like, I don't give a crap that you and Mickey A are different and you're both having relations with Nasha, you know, because she sees it as the same person. I was like, you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that, and I didn't see the point in it. It went absolutely nowhere.
I do think he was having kind of an existential crisis.
This is true.
Right.
Kind of like a midlife crisis.
Yeah, but he was only 6 weeks old.
I know.
So I see how he ended up where he did, but I also did not like it. He needed to be with Nasha.
I think especially because his big crux in this book is loyalty. Even though him and Berto, from his memories, have been friends since children, he feels very betrayed by Berto. And he also, it's a big thing where he's like, well, if you lied, because Berto's like, oh, dude, I saw you get killed by creepers. And he knows that's not true. And he's like, I can't trust him. He's my best friend. And trust and all that is a big deal to Mickey. So the fact that even though he knows Nasha would be heartbroken that he's spending all this time with this other girl, he's still doing it. I was just like, you're being kind of a hypocrite.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I didn't really care for that. I didn't really like the girl he's spending time with. I frankly could have done with more of the other characters and exploring the themes of the book. Less of, what the fuck was her name?
I don't
Kat?
even
I think it was
remember.
Kat. I don't know. I don't like her.
Heather something? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like her.
Yeah. I liked the book. I also gave it 3 stars. I'm excited to see the movie. I'm excited to see how they like adapt it and what they do. I didn't think I was going to need to read the second book, but I might read it mostly because I want to know more about the world.
Yes.
Like the universe, not just Mickey himself. I don't really care about him that much.
Oh, Zygma really is a big fan of the Bobaverse books. It provides compelling explanations for variances and convergences observed in clones compared to their source material.
Yeah. I do have that first book in Audible, and I've been meaning to read it, but I have not read it yet.
Zygma is a big fan of them.
Yeah.
He says, well, I found Mickey well developed. The supporting characters felt two-dimensional, and their personalities seemed solely designed to advance the plot. Yeah. I really liked Nasha a lot. Too. I thought she was pretty tough. I thought she was pretty well developed. I did not care about Kat. I felt like she was kind of a sad sack.
I liked the captain guy, like their like leader guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty well.
And I liked Mickey a lot. And Berto I found interesting, but I didn't particularly like him, but I did think he was, you know, developed enough. But I think we're supposed to be kind of like doubting him and being like skeptical of him.
I agree.
So,
yeah. Oh.
Zygma gives it 2.5 out of 5. Rocky said he's not going to read it.
No.
There was no dogs in it.
Mad about it.
And he's quite upset. Fairpoint Station says, also, if they have the ability to reorganize matter into whatever new materials they need food-wise, why don't they just start shoveling in rocks, dirt, snow from...
Well,
I think
don't think that that's the
organic.
way... I think so, too. I think that that's the way the machine worked. I don't really know.
I think it'd have to be organic, so it would have to be like if they're basically making a meat paste.
Yeah.
I kind of pictured it, you know, like that canned meat, gross stuff.
Like Spam?
Not Spam. Spam's lovely.
Spam is lovely.
Like when it's like like that basically kind of like dog food.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking. Like a
paste.
like a pate kind of.
Yeah, basically I picture that, but it has to be made from some kind of meat.
Yeah.
So like if you got your finger cut off, you can make the pate out of it. You can put a dog in it or a cat in it.
What is wrong with you?
Apparently I've crossed lines.
They hear you.
Well then.
You do talk about eating their legs a lot, so.
They are my
used to
emergency
it.
food reserves. And my friends.
Sometimes when we're talking about that kind of thing, Doug will talk about Ripley and he'll just be like, she's just meat and bones. And I'm like, no, she's my
She
child.
is an emergency food reserve.
No.
I'm not saying I would kill my dog. I'm not a monster. But if we were starving, I might take off the back leg and give him one of those cute little doggy wheels. Anyway, I digress. You digress.
You're coming to live with me.
So I think, yes, it would have to be some kind of meat matter. I don't even think, like, I think it'd have to be like, like something alive.
A protein.
Some kind of protein.
Yeah.
Organic matter. Maybe plants you could do it with, but I don't know. I think you could dilute it too much.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm craving Spam too.
I want like a Spam pizza.
So yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it. Just a lot of the stuff I liked about it, I didn't feel like I got enough of. But I really think there's ample room to make a really good movie out of this. So I'm very excited to see what the movie does. Yeah.
And I love Robert Pattinson. He can do whatever he wants.
Especially because like some of the things I saw where they're describing the plot, they described it as like a romance, and I'm like, are they talking about him and Kat? Because that's the worst part of the book.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that. So if it wasn't for the cat part, I probably would have given it 3.5, 4 stars.
Yeah.
The cat part really upset me. But it is really funny. It's very funny. I'm excited to see what happens in the next book.
Yeah.
I was also surprised by how well I understood and related to this because the author is French. I mean, I know he's writing about space and stuff, but the characters all seemed,
like anybody we know.
Yeah.
Not necessarily French.
Yeah, I didn't get a whole this is a different culture vibe from it. Sometimes you can read a book and you're like, oh, this is we read She's a Haunting, and it's a Korean author, a Korean book. It's a very different culture. It's very fascinating. But yeah, I was not impressed. I was surprised by how you could have told me it's an American author and I would have believed you.
I think she was Vietnamese.
Yes.
Yes.
She is a Haunting.
Yes.
This bloke is French.
So yeah.
Hi, Brewster. All the dogs are needy. So Fairpoint says 3 out of 5 stars for us as well. Has some interesting ideas, but didn't blow me away. Yeah, it's something kind of where I feel like he could have expanded on a lot of stuff, but that's kind of why I'm excited to read the second book because maybe he does a bit there.
Yeah.
So the scene with Mickey 7 and Nasha got very... Yeah, it did. That was the most French part of the whole book.
I agree with that. I was like, oh God, I hope we don't get into this.
But I do like how you described it to him having kind of a midlife crisis or existential crisis because that makes me a little more forgiving of it.
Yeah.
He was really it's a lot of basically who am I? What do I matter? What part of me makes me me? That stuff was all very interesting. Hi, Brewster. All right. So are we ready for the next book?
Yeah, let's do it.
Boom. Okay, draw me like your French girls moment. I wish there was.
You'll just have to read it or watch the movie when
funny!
It comes out.
So I know Brandon hated this book. I loved this book. I gave it a very high 4 stars.
That is high for you.
Yeah, I don't often give a 4 stars. Usually if it's a 4 stars, it's a 3.5 rounded up. I actually really loved this, but I will tell you with Bunny, you will either love it or hate it, especially looking at the reviews. Tons of people hated it. So there's a few reasons I think a lot of people didn't like this. One, this is literary fiction. So it is not a plot-focused novel. It's really it's more focused on the thematic elements than it is the plot. A lot of people aren't going to like that. It's also a satire, and I think satire, it just doesn't always work for people. Because sometimes people want things to be straightforward, and it really isn't. It's also kind of like a fairy tale. It's odd. It's an odd book.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, but I can definitely see why some people would have a hard time, especially in the second half, where the writing style completely changes. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. I'm going to tell you guys the plot. I guess I'll go ahead with it.
Yeah, go for it.
So I really love this because a big part of the reason why I love this is I was an English lit major and I wasn't getting my master's, I wasn't in a graduate program like Samantha Mackey is in this. But just getting my bachelor's, I related very hard to a lot of this bullshit. So the reason I didn't get my master's is when you are in a literature program, the emphasis is very much on literary fiction. There is no room for pop fiction. There's no room for fun stuff. It's all literary, which is interesting because literary fiction doesn't sell very well. You know, Stephen King, that kind of stuff, that sells well. But in my programs, you know, we'd have to like make a lot of copies of our stories and have people rip them apart. They would always be like, oh, it's too nasty, or why does it have to have zombies in it? It would be so much better if you took that out. It would be so much better if you... And I basically just realized if I wanted to write like horror stories, there was not a place for that there. And I got everything I was going to get out of that. And I definitely can see that she's reflecting on that in this. So, oh my gosh.
Oh, he's going to tell you about it.
So what it's about is Samantha Mackey. She is supposed to be working on her thesis. She loves writing, but she is in a program with these girls who call themselves Bunny.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, they're kind of like Heathers. Honestly, it's a lot like Heathers. Mm-hmm. And she's in this writing group with them, and they're this tight clique. And so they really are hard on her writing, and they're always talking about how dark it is and stuff. And she doesn't really have anyone who connects with her. Her mother died when she was younger, and her father has been in a lot of illegal dealings, and he's on the lam. So she has nobody. She has nowhere to go home to. And she's very, very lonely. And yes, part of the problem I think that people have with this book is the narrator is not reliable. She is having a nervous breakdown. So it's also very much like a feminist novel, too, because, you know, we get, like, the inner workings of a woman who's losing her shit. Some bell jar stuff going on here, which is exciting. Yeah. There's a lot of literary illusions. If you had to read anything like the yellow wallpaper, the bell jar, any of that in school, you're going to get it. Anything by Virginia Woolf, like, I just love this. Yeah. So.
This book was written for you.
It really was.
Yeah.
But the bunnies are pretty nasty to her. And she just has her one friend, Ava, who does not like the bunnies at all. Ava's very, very unique.
Ava hates everybody.
Ava hates everybody, but for Samantha.
Yeah.
Who she calls Smacky. So the bunnies finally invite Samantha to Smut Salon, which is what they call it when they hang out. And essentially it's supposed to be there just like writing and stuff. And so she's like, okay, this could make my life easier. But she goes, and they are not writing. So I really love this, because there is this phrase called kill your darlings, which is a writing thing, which means sometimes you have to kind of delete maybe something you thought was brilliantly written, because the overall body of work is stronger without... See, I'm talking like the people in the fucking book. But yeah, writing programs are douchey, and I think that's one of the core themes of this book. So yes, does it come off a little douchey in places? Yes. Is it intentionally written that way? Also, yes. And that's one thing I think a lot of people who read this book did not understand. That's what makes it satirical. So she goes there, and these girls are basically able to use their imaginations, which they have great imaginations. They're in a creative writing program, and they can take a rabbit, and there are rabbits everywhere at Warren University. They can use their imaginations to take it and turn it into a boy. And I like how they open the door, kind of like a mystery date. And then there's a boy. Here's the problem. They can't get the boys quite right. They have kind of like cleft lips and like buck teeth like rabbits, or they gnaw on everything. So they'll have like kind of like prom date nights with them, and they'll be like chewing on things, and they will basically melt down if you challenge them too much. So if you argue with them or you ask them too many questions, they will literally self-combust. Wow. Also, their dicks don't work.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
So it doesn't really work when you're creating a boy, and you can't have sex with it, and they chew up things, and they explode. So their boy-making thing is not going well. And you start to realize that there's a very good reason why they have invited Samantha. Because they know that Samantha probably can make a boy better than they can. Yeah. And she can. She does eventually make a boy, and he's indistinguishable from a normal human boy. So, that's really all I can say without giving you a lot of spoilers. But there's a lot of other stuff going on in here, too. Because, like, the bunnies also drug her because they're trying to make her compliant. And she is very, like, unique. And that is another big theme of this novel. It's, like, how even people who... Like Samantha is judgmental of the bunnies because they're all the same. But there's also something kind of stuck up about some people who are so unique that they don't give other people a chance.
So that was kind of how I felt about Ava at first.
I'm going to let you out.
How much she hated everything and everybody.
Go.
Do you want the other one out too? He's behaving. He's being a really good boy. Yeah, just people who like hate it for hating's sake. I'm just like, I feel like, and
I haven't really seen that in a lot of books, how there's kind of a snobbery with that too, in outsiderness. There is a whole, you're not allowed in this clique thing. It may not be a clique with a bunch of other girls, but it's still a clique. It's a clique with yourself. Or
it's elitist.
It's elitist. Yeah. It's basically saying you are not smart enough or cool enough for me to associate with. And I thought that was a really good part. Like, there's a lot of cool feminist stuff in here. Yeah. It's really cool.
I will probably finish it one of those days. I made myself a list of books like this one and Grunts and a couple other ones that we've either read or talked about reading that I just haven't gotten to yet, and I put it on that list. I got about a third of the way through, and I liked it, but it was like, it's the way it's written is really like, it's not a breeze. It's not, and it really is going to, she's trying to challenge you. She's not trying to make a book that you're going to pick up in mass market paperback from Safeway. No. She is writing a book to challenge you. This book is work. She wants you to think about it. Yeah. She's making very clear allusions to other literary books that she expects you to pick up on. Yeah. She's making a lot of points here that she wants you to think about, and she is challenging you. So you cannot just read this on the beach. Like, this is a book that you kind of have to take your time with. It gets really hard to read in the second half because Samantha has been drugged. And the bunnies have basically kind of made her like the Borg and like a mass consciousness. That part, because I when I listen to audiobooks, I do read the physical book as well. It really helps because I have ADD. So I usually do both, or I will go back and forth. That part, I had to listen to the audiobook because it becomes basically like, we are Bunny and we like Pinkberry. They're obsessed with Pinkberry. We like this. And you know, and it's to show that Samantha no longer has an identity. She is one of the bunnies. Okay. But it is very confusing. You can notice that when different bunnies are talking about based on their personalities. However, I will say, if the writing style of this book does not work for you, the girl who does the audiobook is fantastic. She's taking a lot of these, sentences that are intentionally overwritten, and she makes them very digestible and fun because they're supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be funny. So if you were put off by the writing style, I would definitely say go with the audiobook on this because, I mean, it's hard to read. It really is. I think reading the novel just by itself is a lot of work. Yeah. I'm glad I had the audiobook. Yeah. I was enjoying the audiobook more than I was the physical book. It's kind of like, you know what I would compare it to? Like, have you ever read like Shakespeare? And it's really hard. You have to go line by line, dissect it, and that's really hard. But you could just watch a play and then you get it. Yeah. Because you see a person bringing it to life. It's kind of what the audiobook does here. That's a good allegory there. Yeah. So metaphor. I had a lot of fun with this. I actually do want to get into spoilers because another reason I think a lot of people didn't like this is I've noticed with the reviews on Goodreads, a lot of people didn't get the ending. Not trying to be like, oh, you didn't like it because you didn't get it. But I do want us to discuss this a little bit. All right, but first I want to check in with you guys because I know a lot of you guys really hated this. So let's hear your thoughts. Yes. And that's absolutely okay. Strange and Unusual Book Club is a safe place. Yeah. I'm going to have negative opinions about things that you guys like, and you guys don't have to agree with me. Your opinions are valid. So, and like I said, this is a very divisive book. So let's hear from some people who maybe didn't like it and tell you why it's so divisive. Horrorhead Heather, oh bunny, how you disappoint me. Horrorhead Heather, I need to read it. I didn't understand past Act 2 and need to go down the bunny Reddit hole. I'm going to discuss the end bit there too, which is one of the reasons I really liked this. I found it incoherent, plus the characters got on my nerves so much. I also liked it because even though they were annoying, the body and all that crap they were talking about, that is something you deal with in a fucking lit program. And it was fucking annoying. And I actually, it's one of those things where I haven't ever been able to, complain about it to people because I don't know, just... It's a niche kind of a thing. It's so niche, and it kind of makes you sound stuck up or something. So I was just kind of glad that there was a book where it's that's what it was like. And I've tried to talk to other, people who've been, I've talked to a lot of authors, particularly ones that, got a lit degree and stuff is, something I thought about a lot when I went to get my degree. Did I need to? And honestly, you really don't need to because a lot of
a lot of the way higher education is right now with creative writing, it really is trying to mold you into being a specific type of writer, and there's not a lot of room to be a lot of different kinds. And I really like that Mona Awad seems to have taken the best of it, but then made something that's really kind of a fuck you to higher education literature programs. So I'm just so excited. Brandon mentioned, maybe that's why I didn't click with it. I didn't like Heather's either. It's Frankenstein by way of Heather's. I've read that somewhere, and that's a perfect way of putting it. It's also a little bit of a fairy tale. I give it a Heather's out of a Watership Down. I was confused on what and who was real after Smacky got drugged, and I want to go back and slowly read it. This book needs a Lenny Small. Okay, yes it does. Okay. I'm going to get into spoilers. Do you want no spoilers?
No, I don't care. We can have spoilers.
Oh, you don't care, huh?
Look,
there's our spoiler sign.
Oh, that's cute.
I know.
I like that.
I didn't make that. I stole off the internet.
Depending on the situation, sometimes I enjoy a spoiler. Sometimes it makes me want to be invested in the thing more.
So I do like to see other people's opinions, because I knew this was very divisive. And when I finished it, because especially I liked the ending so much, I wanted to see why so many people disliked it. Now, one of the big complaints I saw is a lot of people were like, so was it all a dream or was it all in her head? Samantha Mackey, our main character, is an unreliable narrator, but the whole book is not in her head. So I can see if that's what you took from this book, you'd be being very pissed off and you would hate it. I absolutely get that. That is not what happened. And it's not like... So, to explain. So I already mentioned how the bunnies wanted Samantha because they know that she can make a bunny better than them. Which, bunnies in this case are you take a bunny, you turn it into a boy. That's what they want. They basically just want sex slaves. I love how they call it their darlings, because you kill your darlings and they have to kill them and they have to hit them like, oh, it's beautiful. Oh, but those are all fucked up. So they realize, and this is a huge spoiler here, and it's also, it's two things, because Samantha also is kind of in a coming of age. She's very, very alone, and she only really lets Ava in, and there's a very nice boy on her campus who's trying to be there for her, and he thinks she's cool, and he's weird too. He's like, oh, you talk to rabbits? Yeah, I talk to things sometimes.
I thought that part was cute.
He's really sweet, and she even talks about how his face lights up when she's around. She's not letting this boy in, and he just adores her.
Yeah.
And she just won't. And it's kind of her journey towards, kind of breaking down those walls and not being so elitist and also just being welcoming to other people. The big crux of this is you find out that Ava is a bunny. So Ava is not a bunny in a bunny sense. What happened was you get a flashback with Samantha at the end. Samantha was at the pond and she was really deeply sad. And she wanted somebody who belonged to her. And they talk a lot about how Ava has feathered hair and stuff. Samantha was a swan. And she turned the swan into Ava. And what happens is she makes a boy. I can't remember the boy's name. And she made him by accident out of a bunny. And then he and Ava get together and she's really upset, but she can't quite understand why, because she's really blocked a lot of this out. Again, she's having a nervous breakdown. The bunnies are extremely jealous of her. And that's why they start acting mean in the third act. So that part I was a little confused by. Initially, my thought when reading it, I thought that the lead bunny, the Duchess, I thought she was drugging them and that they were somehow, I thought she was, because her sister's a neuroscientist, I thought she was doing something neurologically to them to kind of alter them. That's not what's going on. They're angry because they just don't have what she has. And that's another part of, I think, being in a creative writing program. Sometimes people, it takes time, and sometimes people just are naturally talented where you're not, and you have to work hard, and it sucks. There's a lot of people I went to school with where I'm like, oh, it's so effortless for them. I wish it was effortless for me. And that's where that comes from. So they recognize that Ava is a swan. She is not a human being. And that's why they try to say things to her. They'll ask her questions because they're trying to make her break. But she's better made than their bunnies. So since they can't make her blow up, they kill her. And that breaks Samantha's heart. And then she finally does break. Because they've killed the one person she truly loves. And Ava's like her best friend, but she's also in love with her. Ava is everything to her. And honestly, Ava's like her child. She created her. And when they kill her, she has nothing left. And she kind of thinks at the end, because she's at the same lake where it all started, maybe I'll make another one. But then that boy comes and she's like, or maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'll live life. And so I think there is something to that. I think anybody who loves fiction, whether it's watching movies for escapism, playing video games for escapism, writing for escapism, we need that. And that's what Ava is for her. Mm-hmm. It is this escape from how horrible and painful life can be. Mm-hmm. But we can't let that replace our interactions with other people, you know? And so, like, she's, like, basically saying, maybe I will, but right now I'm going to talk to this boy, you know? And she's going to have this real relationship with him. And I thought that was really kind of beautiful and sweet.
That is really sweet.
Okay. So, Heather says, was Ava real? Ava was real, but she was a swan, and she had no idea that she was a swan. She read like a figment of Sam's imagination. See, that's what a lot of people thought on Goodreads. They thought that Ava was a Tyler Durden. She's not. Ava was a swan. That's why her hair's all crazy and feathered like that, because she's a swan, but she's just like the bunnies, only just Samantha's better at making people out of animals. And so she looks like a girl, and she doesn't know that she's not a girl, and she has feelings like a girl, and she has personality like a girl. Like, she made something. And I think another thing that makes me like really love this idea, it's like, have you ever had a book that's like your friend?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like that, like Anna Green Gables, that's my friend. Mm-hmm. That is my book. That is like my comfort book. I love that book. And I think sometimes authors create something that's so real, even though it's fiction, that to you, it's real. It means everything to you. That's what Ava is. She created this thing that is just, it's a part of her, you know? Yeah. It's like, it's real. But yeah, she is real. She's just made from a swan. I don't know if that helps. Or she's suffering from mental, and they do have some stuff in there about how her grandmother was schizophrenic, and she sees the lady in the bus reading the schizophrenia thing. And I did think about that too, but that's just showing how Samantha doesn't know what's going on, because she's blocked out this whole thing where she created Ava. Mm-hmm. When she remembers that, then she's no longer having a mental breakdown because she understands what actually happened. And she's not as susceptible to the bunnies fucking with her head. Because the bunnies gave her, like, drugs and stuff, and they were easily able to mess with her because she is kind of having this mental breakdown. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't quite know what's real or not. It's because she's missing a big piece of the puzzle. That Ava is a swan, and she has the ability. That's the magical realism part of this. There's no explanation for why they can use their imaginations to turn animals into people.
You just kind of have to suspend.
You just need to go with it, okay? And if that's the part that bothers you, I'm sorry. You just need to go with it. Stop staring at me, Swan Princess. I would rather have a pet bunny than a fake boyfriend.
But I mean, if Samantha is as talented, that's not a fake boyfriend.
Well, and
he just at one point used to be a rabbit.
And I think from a writer's point of view, like, you have these ideas in your head and you think it's so exciting, and then you put it down on paper, and sometimes you're just like, that's not what I had in my head. Mm-hmm. And it's so devastating. You know, you love this idea so much, you write it down, and I think that's what's happening with the bunnies. And that's why they're all messed up and they're so frustrated. Whereas Samantha effortlessly is able to create.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So it is really cool, and it's like a full buffet where I really think you can dive in, and this book is really rewarding in that way if you want to dive in. I don't think it should be marketed as horror, because I really don't think it's horror. I think it's magical realism and literary fiction and satire. Yeah. I would recommend this to anybody who liked Night Bitch, which is a similar kind of novel that's literary fiction and feminist. Yeah. Night Bitch is really good.
I'll read this one. I'll finish it.
It's good. And I do think, again, like I said, with the whole Shakespeare thing, I took a lot of classes on Shakespeare and they're really exhausting. But if you watch Shakespeare, then you're like, oh, I get it. Yeah. Like, this is super cool. Yeah. So it's a lot easier to relate to. So the audiobook was really, really good. Yeah. The other thing I want to say about Bunny, it's going to be a movie. I think it's like later this year, maybe next year. I think the movie is going to be really, really fun. Yeah. A lot of this, I think, because it's all in Samantha's head. And Samantha, like I said, is having a nervous breakdown. So it is a little hard to follow her train of thought.
It might not all of it will probably translate very well, but they'll be able to adapt it in a way that works.
I think so. And it's also got a sequel book coming out, so I'm really excited for the sequel book. Ooh. Horrorhead Heather says, so did her and her professor have a relationship? No. So she was trying to open herself up to her professor, the lion. She really respects him. She really likes him. And they are spending time together outside of class, which she knows other people would think is like inappropriate. And that's, I think, part of the reason she has these walls up, like, oh, I don't care what you think about me and stuff. But that's something where other girls would be like, well, she's getting advantages she shouldn't have. The bunnies see her in the car with him, and then he kind of stops spending time with her, and then she, like, you know, grows apart from him. But nothing ever happened. They never had any kind of a relationship. I think she's dwelling on it so much because it was the first time she really let somebody in who was not a person she created. And that is the catalyst that led to her creating Ava. We need to know why she created Ava without even meaning to. It's because the one person she had made a connection with at the university basically
shut her out.
Yeah, shut her out and ghosted her. So then she makes Ava.
Bummer.
So
it is a bummer.
You're awesome, Cheyenne. So, Heather, did that help? And maybe if you didn't like it, sometimes I've had a few experiences. One movie that just didn't register with me was Funny Games, and it was like their favorite movie. They explained it to me, and I don't know if I would say I like it, but I certainly appreciated it more. So I don't know. Hopefully I helped you maybe see this in a different way. If not, that's fine. You can also not like it. Like, I think it's also kind of fun that it's so divisive because it's fun because people are like, oh my God, I love it, or oh my God, I hate it.
Yeah.
So, and I think both are exciting and fun discussions to have.
Love it.
It's, it's just, there are some books that are just really easy, but I think if you're trying a lot of experimental things and you're doing that well, your book should be divisive. And the things she's trying to do, they absolutely should be. So I will tell you about the sequel, which is coming out this year. I'm trying to get it from NetGalley. Let's hopefully they send it to me. It's called We Love You, Bunny. And this one's from the point of view of the bunnies. Oh. So I guess Samantha writes a book about her whole experience with the bunnies. And they are not very happy about how they were depicted in this book. So on her book tour, they kidnap her, and then they make her sit down while they tell the story from their point of view, which is something I really wanted. The bunnies, yes, they're all called bunnies. She does eventually learn their real names. They do have personalities and such, and I wanted to know more about them, so I think that's what we're going to get in the next book. So I'm really excited. It's supposed to be part sequel, part prequel. I think it's going to be fun.
That's nice. That's cool.
Brandon says, I may have to reread Bunny with your perspective in mind. I highly recommend checking out the audiobook. Heather says, I want to read it. I had the same issue with American Psycho with the stream of consciousness and unreliable narrator, but the second read it clicked. I read American Psycho too, and that one's hard too, because again, like, Samantha's so invested in this like literary fiction world in her master's program. Like, that's how she talks. Just like with Patrick Bateman, it's highly annoying, but he is so obsessed with fitting in with society that he notices every single thing someone wears, and it gets really, really irritating really quickly. But I mean, after a while, it does immerse you into Patrick's point of view. And that one's also satirical and stuff. So like, it's another novel that it's divisive. It's also really gross. This book's not gross. American Psycho is really graphic. The worst scene in Terrifier 3 with the rat, they stole that from the American Psycho book.
Great.
It's lovely. It's really hard to read. But it was also kind of funny in a twisted way.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. I'll have to read it.
We're actually making really good time today.
Yeah, we are. We only have one more book to talk about, and then we have to plan for next month.
Yeah, that was honestly, Bunny, I'm really, just final thoughts on it. I'm really happy that it was so successful because, like I said, literary fiction does not tend to do very well. It is not highly marketable, and I'm really excited that even though it's divisive, obviously a lot of people like it because it was a national bestseller. It's getting a movie, and that makes me really excited that we can have these kind of conversations about literature and stuff, and that there's just a variety of things out there. Sometimes I want a beach read. Sometimes I want something that's going to challenge me. And I think this is really cool. So, I'm just really excited for this book, and it's very unique. I will say, even though I can say it's like Frankenstein by way of Heather's, I've never read anything like Bunny before, and that's kind of fun. So.
Love it. Awesome.
All right. Now we're going to get heavy.
Heavy. Bring a box of tissues, you guys.
So much. Like, there.
Love it because I didn't read that one.
I feel bad.
Don't at all.
That was
that was a really awesome, rundown, your explanation of it. makes me want to read it more. So, be proud of yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into spoilers, but I do think, like...
Sometimes they're helpful.
Just a lot of the negative reviews, I'm just like, I would feel the same way, but...
Well, and I think especially with, like, literary fiction, you go into it and you're like, well, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? With something like Mickey 7, you're like, it's sci-fi. Like, it's pretty clear what you're supposed to be getting out of it. But with a book like that, you don't necessarily know. So thank you for your wise words on the matter.
I do want to show off my book collection.
Yes, do it.
So I did show you guys my Grady Hendrix book. He used to, I don't know, he's not publishing new Quirk books anymore. Quirk books tends to do a lot of really fun things with the packaging, but I still always love his books. Like in this one, the girls get a book on witchcraft, and you see a lot of the pages in the book on here. So whether you read this, you know, the audiobook or not, I did a combination of 3. I mean, I don't read signed copies of books because I don't want to ruin them. But I do like looking at all the cool illustrations and stuff in here. And Grady Hendrix always provides that. But this is Horror Store. This was his first, like, traditionally published novel. Where it starts off like an IKEA catalog.
It's pretty cool.
And then as you get deeper and deeper in, they become torture elements. Because it's an IKEA that used to be a prison. And I love this one. This is my first one of his books that I really, truly loved. It's set in the 80s. It's called My Best Friend's Exorcism. And this book... If you get the paperback, I think it looks like a VHS cover. But this one looks like a yearbook, which is cool. And then I just added to... I dropped them. They're fine. They're fine.
It's all okay.
I just got... this is my favorite of his books. How to Sell a Haunted House. And yeah. So yeah, I really love Grady Hendrix. I tend to buy physical copies of books where they are like my friends.
Yeah.
And his books, like we mentioned with, you know, when we were talking about Bunny, a lot of his books are my friends. So
yes, absolutely. And we read Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying last year.
Yes.
That book was also really heavy.
That was surprising because he started off writing this book. That's what surprised me. He started off writing Horror Store, which is Horror Store's just fun. There's not a lot of depth to it. It's just fun. A girl who works at an IKEA. If you've had customer service, you'll relate.
Yeah.
It's just fun. And he's really funny. And then Best Friend's Exorcism has some parts of it that are really emotional, but mostly it's fun. With Southern Book Club, that's dark. And especially with the title, I was not expecting that.
I still, like, lose sleep over that book.
That's what's so crazy about him. He writes these books that are deeply emotional. Kind of funny, with characters you adore.
Yeah.
And then they're terrifying.
Yeah. Really upsetting. But this book... I feel like was important.
I agree.
This was an important book. I feel like I enjoyed it more and I felt like I related to it more than like The Handmaid's Tale. But I put it at that same level of importance.
I honestly, like, and I thought about whether or not to include this in my review, but I didn't want anyone to think I was, like, lessening the importance of the other book, but I would compare it to something like The Color Purple.
Yeah.
Just as far as just how it really brought to life this period of time that I didn't know anything about until I read the book. And then that book made me care about that period of time. It, like, made me care about something that I previously didn't even know about in a whole new way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was really important. So I listened to the audiobook and I had seen a copy of it at Target. And I went back to buy it.
And it wasn't there?
It wasn't there. There was like no sign it ever existed. So I went onto Amazon and I bought a copy. It's
Why is
like
my water so loud.
it's
just water. I just want it in my Chucky cup. It's really loud.
So I bought a copy on Amazon. It was like a large print just because I needed a copy. But I do think that this book will be banned in several.
You're not going to find it
formats.
in anybody's high school. That's for sure.
And so I was like, I have to have a copy. I don't care how I get it. So I have this like weird paperback large print copy. But it's so important. So important.
It really is. And for a little bit of background, from reading his afterword, and I read some interviews with Grady Hendrix just because I just adore him. Seriously, read his interviews. He is just... I really need to meet this person. Yes. He's somebody I want to have a cup of coffee with.
Yeah.
I just adore him. But he says that this book was inspired. He has 2 different family members who were revealed to have been sent away to one of these maternity homes where, as a teenager, before Roe v. Wade, which makes this all the more important now, before Roe v. Wade, that you couldn't get an abortion. So they didn't want anyone knowing that their daughter was pregnant. So they'd send you to these homes in the middle of flipping nowhere where you would have your baby. They put it up for adoption, and then you'd go home and pretend none of it ever happened. Yep. So he had 2 family members. One of them, she ended up reconnecting with her baby, who is an adult now. And then the other one never really talked about it and never quite healed. And then he read a book called The Girls We Sent Away. And I want to read that. It's really hard. There's also a book called, there's 2 books, they have like the same title. There's one by Megan Church. So there's The Girls We Sent Away by Megan Church. That's a fictional novel about kind of the same thing, minus the witchcraft. And then there's a nonfiction book called The Girls Who Went Away.
Oh, okay.
Different book. That's the one he read by Anne Fessler. Okay. So I really want to read that. And just like he was talking about, like he said it in obviously the 70s because that's when this was happening, right before Roe v. Wade. And he was like looking at old like yearbook photos from that time period. And I guess one of the girls he saw, he's like, that's Fern. And the way he writes, he will just do a draft and then he'll do another draft and then he just kind of keeps doing it and adding more stuff. The first draft didn't even have witches in it. And like Rose was initially there, but not like the main characters and stuff. So it's just amazing how he's able to just build these worlds.
Yeah. So this book takes place in the mid 70s. It's like 1973 or something like that. And we have our main character. I don't remember her Neva. And she is 15 and pregnant. And her dad is taking her to this home in Florida to live out her pregnancy and have her baby and then come back and not bring as much shame to their family.
And that's something else. Like the other thing Grady Hendrix said is the vitriol people have for unwed mothers. And he has a series of quotes at the start of this book from everyone from Red Book to Bill Clinton, from the early, early time periods to modern day, of people blaming all of the problems in the world on unwed mothers. Nothing about the fathers and stuff. There's a quote in this book that made me think about that, how the girls have to bleed. Yep. They have to suffer and be in pain, but the boys who impregnated them don't. Nope. Their parents don't. None of these people do. And these girls really suffer. They had no autonomy, no rights. Nothing. They go there, this place, and they're treated like criminals. I mean, they are provided for. There's a lady there who later on is like, hey, they put a roof over your head and stuff. And I think in their own way they mean well, but these girls have no autonomy. They have no say on what they put in their body, like what they eat.
They're all on like a salt restriction. Yes. Oh my God.
They have no say in their medical care. Yeah. They'll be given a pill and be like, what is this? And they'll be like, just take it. Like, or you wouldn't understand. Yeah. You're too stupid to understand. They will ask about certain medical procedures and nobody explains it to them.
Nobody explains to them, like, how they even got pregnant in the first place. Like, there's girls in there who don't understand how birth control works. She's like, I took it the day of. And it's like, no, you have to take it all the time for birth control to work. Any of the, what is birth going to be like? And they're like, oh, you're knocked out. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, they don't tell them anything.
Yeah. Even with an epidural, giving birth hurts. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. Yeah. It's a lot, and so they don't have anyone giving them information medically, and they have no say in what happens to their babies either. So like a lot of people, I've seen a lot of shows and stuff where they will show women in the situation and how from the perspective of the adoptive family, how they're so stressed out that the mom might change her mind and stuff. These girls don't get a choice. No. A lot of them want to keep their babies, or at least want to have the option to, but if you do that, then they'll say, because you're a teenager and you're unable to provide, you must be insane and you're going to get institutionalized. It's horrific. Like, honestly, that is horrific enough.
Or if you don't decide to give your baby to this family who wants your baby, then none of your costs will be covered. You will have to come up for the money of your whole stay while you were at this home, the birth of the baby. You have to provide for everything if you decide you want to keep your baby. They really blackmail and torture these girls into a corner.
And I also we get a lot of girls in this. Her main character is Neva, who when you get there, you don't even get your own name. they give you a name. So all the girls are given, like, flower names. She's called Fern.
Yeah.
So you don't even get your own name, and you have no contact with anybody. But, yeah, they have, like, absolutely, like, no control over anything. So, like, it's really scary. And then to get into, like, I remember what I was going to say before that. There's a lot of different kinds of girls who are brought here. So Fern, she is a girl who she's raised to make people, particularly men, happy. And her boyfriend tells her, you know, he's in love with her, they're going to have sex, and she's like, well, I'm supposed to make my boyfriend happy, so she does it. And then she gets pregnant, and
he goes away.
And there's one girl who she swears her boyfriend still loves her, and another girl who's planning their wedding. And they, you know, some of these girls have been, like, lied to or misled. There is a very young girl who's 14 and doesn't speak, and that is a trigger warning thing I will tell you right now. There is no graphic descriptions of sexual assault, SA, but there are characters who are victims of SA.
Yes. And it's very upsetting.
It's very upsetting. Yes. So there's a lot of reasons why someone would be here. And with that particular character, too, it's even more heartbreaking that she tries to tell a lot of people. I mean, not that it's not your fault even if you don't tell anybody, but nobody listens to her. It's
so upsetting. So they're stuck in this home, and they're bored out of their minds, and this one girl comes, and she has she's nauseous all the time. She's so nauseous. Like, she can't handle how sick, and the doctor's like, you're doing something wrong. Like, you're doing this. Like, just get over it. And they end up, there's like a bookmobile, and they're like, we want to find new books to read. And the woman who runs the bookmobile is like, well, you might be interested in this book. And she kind of, like, puts all these pretenses on this book, but she, like, lets them take it, and it's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls.
It's How to Be a Groovy Witch.
Yes.
Because it's the 70s.
Yes.
And I love it because I have, Grady Hendrix is a big lover of, like, 70s and 80s pulp novels. And he did do a lot of research on, like, real life things, real life witchcraft practices, like root magic, which is also called hoodoo, Wicca. He worked with a lot of covens writing this. But yeah, I have books exactly like the book you described.
I love it so much.
The girl on the cover's got, like, the eyeliner, and there's pentacles and stuff, and it looks all groovy.
Yeah. So they get this book, and, like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to them, but they're like, well, let's try something. And they do, and it kind of works, but it kind of backfires too. And so
they're able to basically take something and give it to somebody else. So they give their morning sickness to the doctor, who basically said it was all in her head.
Yeah. But then he, like, he's, like, projectile vomiting around his office. And it's really disgusting. Yeah. And so they're like, well, let's look at what else can we fix.
And what I liked about this is the witches in this are villains. You know, there's a lot of things where, witches are good people and stuff. And this book explains that the witches are neither good nor bad. It's your intention that matters. And because these girls, they have every reason to be angry, but their intention is to do harm.
Yes.
So the witchcraft they're doing is harmful and scary, and it's going to get really scary. And there are people who... Essentially, I feel like the person they meet, the librarian, she's just another person that wants to control them.
Yes, absolutely.
She's offering them this way out, but she's lying to them.
And it serves her.
Yeah.
So it's for her gain.
Yeah, and so these girls, like, they're kind of pulled in all these directions, and you can see why they're so desperate, because they have no options. Like, the youngest girl, not only was she SA'd, she is pregnant with that person's baby, and that person's going to adopt the baby and take her when she leaves. And she's like, please do not make me go back there. Like, anything. And that's why they're so desperate to figure out something to help her, because what else are they going to do? They don't have money.
Yeah, that starts out being their goal, is they want to do something to protect her. And then, things go sideways, and other people get other motives, and
Oh my gosh.
Talk about it.
I think their dad came home. They're all hopped up a Mountain Dew.
Hopped up.
Hi, babies.
Let's go play
Hi,
video games. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know how spoilery we want to get.
Let's check them in the chat really quick.
Let's talk to chat.
The book, you can see the cover right here. It's called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls.
You might have been talking about the books that you were talking about.
What book?
The other ones, the ones that it was based off of.
The books I was talking about were, I'll type it in here. The girls who went away by, and he mentions this book in the afterword too, Fessler. And then, okay, so they were not given any information or knowledge on what was going on with their pregnancy.
Yeah, nothing.
Can we read The Thief of Hollywood sometime? At the end of this stream, we're going to ask you guys for a book recommendation, so hang tight. Did someone wear out their names? Funny. Yummy. Mummy B Movie, you have to read this. Yes. It's really, really good. All of his books are really, really good. Like, yes, they're more than just horror books. Like, his books are
beautiful,
important.
Yes.
They're transferring their babies into rando dudes as well. Yeah. You know, you should read the book. Yeah. It can be a prequel to Junior. You gotta read the book. Yeah. So,
the way that he describes their bodies, like being a woman, is like he writes it the way he writes it, like when they're pregnant and it's hot and they're heavy.
Oh, like, they're in Florida too.
Yeah, I've never been.
Being pregnant in the summer is hard enough as is. Being pregnant in Florida,
right,
without air conditioning, that's like a circle in hell.
Yeah, it sounds awful. So I've never been pregnant, but I do have a woman's body, and I have experienced some of the ailments that go with that. And he captures it really well. But then there's also like the really beautiful parts about having this body. And like I don't know how he knows what it feels like, but he perfectly writes it. And then there's some other like medical things that he gets into that he describes in horrific detail. I almost put the book down. I almost quit at that point.
There are some parts in here that I will say are really, really heavy because these are very young. They're children. Yeah. And that is a big progression of this novel, is them accepting that they're children. They're babies.
They're babies.
14, 15 years old. Mm-hmm. And they're having to do with very adult things, and they're being treated like criminals. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really hard, especially like one point, I think the part that really was hard for me is one girl's like calling out for her mother, and her mom, nobody's there for them. They're completely abandoned. No one's holding their hand when they're in the hospital, and it's really, really heartbreaking how abandoned by their families, by society they are, how just rejected they are.
Yeah. I'm going to cry just thinking about it.
I know. It makes me really sad, too.
So heavy.
So, yeah, this book, it's about a lot of different things. So, before we get into spoilers, I'll talk about that a little bit. Part of it is kind of like finding your own power. Mm-hmm. There's a quote in Buffy the Vampire Slayer where Angel at the end of season 2, mm-hmm. he's like, you take away your friends, take away your family.
Who are you?
Who are you? And she's like, me. Or what do you have left? He says, me. And that's what, these girls have everything taken away from them. Mm-hmm. Everything. But at the core, they are still them. Mm-hmm. And that, sometimes, it may be all you have. And these girls are strong. What they endure. And I think a lot of this book is kind of about the endurance of the human spirit, which is, again, why I kind of compared it to The Color Purple. Because The Color Purple, you're just like, how can these people take much more? Mm-hmm. And they do. Yeah. And a lot of times people in these situations do.
When I was in 8th grade, I read, within the same 1 month period, I read The Color Purple, Night by Elie Wiesel, and A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich.
That's a heavy month.
And I think that's part of like why books like this are just so hard for me. Like was rough.
The reason they don't just terminate the pregnancy is because that was illegal.
Yes.
You could, like if you've watched If These Walls Could Talk, some people would go to places where they would use a coat hanger, mm-hmm. and a lot of times those people died or were irreparably damaged. It was illegal to have an abortion. So these girls are only 14, 15 years mm-hmm. old. So the only option they have before Roe v. Wade is to to have these babies in private. They usually, the family will say they're going to visit their aunt for the summer or whatever, and then put them up for adoption. This book is set in 1970. It's right before Roe v. Wade.
It's right before.
It's Roe v. Wade is passed the year after the events of this book.
Yes.
And it's just over the course of a summer. And I think it's really important now because Roe v. Wade has been overturned. So we live in this world where in a lot of places you can still have rights to birth control and medical care and stuff, and there are places where you have none of that. You know, and it's really scary. I think when it comes to a person's body, they should have some ability to say what happens to it. And a lot of these people, like, it's just sad, especially somebody who's, like, you know, raped or molested or something.
There's that, like, that alone. And then also, like, some of these girls literally had no education. Like, they didn't even understand, like, they were taken advantage of, or they did these things and didn't know what the consequences could possibly be. Like, there has to be education there too. Like, God, there's so much. This is a whole other.
Also, one of the girls is black, so she's got a whole other set of problems. Like, she just knows that she'll tell Fern, like, you have to be the one to say it because no one's going to listen to me. Like, she just knows. Even though her family's actually very wealthy, she understands that because of the world they live in, being black, she is not going to be treated with any kind of respect. Even though she comes from, like, this very wealthy family, where if she was a white girl, she would have a lot of respect.
And a lot of power.
Yes.
But still not as much power as a man.
Yeah, and all the girls are very different, so I really love their personalities. They really do leap off the page. Fern is a girl who she's really raised to be polite and nice, and she's always apologizing, and she's just one of those girls where she's just, like, I feel like she apologizes for taking up any kind of space. Like, you just feel, my heart went out to Fern.
Yeah. And
then we have Rose, who is very much like the hippie mindset, like she's gonna take down the system.
Yes, and, fight the man.
Zinnia like makes fun of her. Zinnia's the girl who's black, and because Rose really like is all like.
She's a fighter.
She's a fighter, but she's also like, you know, claiming to like, you know, be part of all the
like the black
anti-segregation
Black Panthers
stuff and so she anything like that, anything about taking down the system, she's all about that. She's very anti-establishment. But Grady Hendrix, when he wrote her, he said he's like, I know a lot of these people who they seem so strong and they're against all these things, but really there's like a core to that that's very, very vulnerable. And that's Rose. Like, she has all these things. She keeps saying, you know, when I have my baby, she's going to name her baby Blossom. We're going to have a farm with goats, and we're going to live together, and no one's going to be able to stalk us. And you just know, like, how is that going to happen?
Yeah.
You know, and eventually she's going to get broken down.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, you know, I mentioned Zinnia. She's the one who has the boyfriend who she says is waiting for her. There's another girl who's planning for her wedding.
Yeah.
There's one girl who insists she's not pregnant. Like, she's just in denial about the whole thing. That one's scary.
That one is scary.
But I mean, there's a lot of body horror stuff, and it's awful because, you know, it's not anything like aliens. It's just bodies.
It's just real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of reality here. Like, yeah, there's the witchcraft part, and that part has, like, that magical, like, detachment, right? Like, you can be like, okay, well, this didn't really happen, so we can, like, but this is real.
Most of this honestly is real. Happen. There is some so the negative reviews I read of Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, a lot of people are like, well, there's not really any witchcraft in it. I will admit, they don't even get the book until a quarter of the way in, because he's really, really establishing these characters. It's also kind of a long book. It's almost 600 pages long. But I don't think any of that is boring, because I think already just the situation they're in is scary and horrific, and he needs to establish that. Yeah. And the witchcraft is a part of these girls' journey to trying to get some kind of power back. And I think it does work really, really well. When you get into the witchcraft stuff, it's kind of like The Craft, in that at first it's kind of fun. And you're like, oh, good for them. Yeah. And then it gets really, really scary. Yeah. And you're just like, well, these girls have opened Pandora's box. And how are we going to get our girls out of the situation?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And they don't, like, they're making these deals, and they're just so powerless and so desperate to to
baby.
save each other and themselves.
Yeah, they care so much about each other, which is one of the things I think makes you really love these girls is they don't know each other's real names or anything. Mm-hmm. They're not going to see each other after this. They could just be like, well, you're on your own, sister. Mm-hmm. But they build this coven, and they really are looking out for each other. Like, Fern, she has the young one, Holly, who's 14. Mm-hmm. Like, she sleeps in her bed with her and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's just so sad because, like, I keep thinking, like, your mama should be there giving you a hug and stuff. And the people who should be there aren't there. But these girls are there for each other. And it's really heartwarming when they're holding each other and they're there for each other and they're learning how to do all these things for each other. And it's just like if just one person with any kind of power helped them, it would make all the difference.
Yes.
And the only person with any power who's willing to help them has very ulterior motives.
Yes, absolutely. What was her name? Miss...
I keep referring to her as a librarian. It's like Percow. Begins with a P. It's in the book. Remember.
It is in the book. But anyways, yeah, it's heavy. It's heavy. Heavy.
They're alive, damn it. It's a miracle. I love Kimmy Schmidt.
Because he had so long.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of themes to unpack in this. I think it's really an important story about a period. Mm-hmm. I think a period of time in America that people just want to push away. People want to talk about like the past, like it's all, things are so much better than when people had moral values. Yeah, unfortunately, moral values meant that anything that didn't fit with that got pushed under the rug. And these girls are that one of the things that got pushed under the rug. And it's this really awful part of American history that I don't think we know enough about. And we don't talk about. They don't talk about this in school. So I do think this is a really important book.
It is. It's incredibly important. I think everybody should read it, but most people won't. I do think it's going to end up on a banned list if it hasn't already.
And that's the thing, like, it was painful to read, but I also feel like even though these girls are fictional, there were real girls who went through this, and I felt like their stories needed to be told. This story needed to be told. And I actually do want to read those other books because I feel like it's not fair. No. How they have, to this day, the way society views, teenagers who are pregnant. It's like, well, they were asking for it and stuff. Like, it's just, or they were irresponsible, or, maybe they should have kept their legs crossed. Yeah. It's just...
It's not fair.
It's really unfair.
It's not fair. It makes me so mad. It makes me
mad.
It makes me so mad.
That this is set in 1970, and a lot of the issues that these women face, we still face today.
Yep. There are plenty of places in this country right now that face these same issues.
It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
All right, do we want to talk spoilers?
Sure, yeah.
Do you want to talk spoilers?
Yeah.
Or do we want to keep it spoiler free?
I mean...
I'll put up the sign.
Okay. Let's talk about it. For me, the most upsetting part was when Fern had her baby.
So I like how... That's a weird way to put that, but I appreciated how he showed us two different ways of this. We see how the institution sets it up. How they send Fern to the hospital completely alone.
All by herself. In
no
a taxi.
Pain medicine until she's going to deliver. They cut her. They shave her. They don't tell her anything. And then they just take her baby and they just discard her. Yeah. And then we see the other alternative, which is an at-home birth. And I'm just like, oh my God. For me, that was the hardest one, was Holly's baby.
Yeah. That one was rough. But I don't know, like the way that when Fern was having her baby and she was describing just how they were like manhandling her and like doing all these things to her body without her permission, without even just telling her why they were doing what they were doing. And
like she's shaving her. They shave her pubic region. And then when they go to help Holly, she's like, oh, we're going to shave you. And they're like, why are you doing that?
No, don't do that.
That's stupid.
That's not what you need to do.
But yeah, they didn't. At the hospital, they just do. They don't ask her permission.
No.
And
they're mad at her for being there. They're so mad at her.
They put her in a room without proper lighting that has like paper towels in the corner.
Yeah.
Like she's treated like garbage.
She's treated like garbage. And then the actual description of when she was giving birth and the way that the doctor and like the ripping and the cutting and just that descriptive part of it, it was horrifying. It was horrifying to me. And I have not given birth. And if it's like that, I don't want to do it.
It's scary. Like, I have given birth, and so some of that stuff I did experience. Like, I was cut. Like, not, I don't think it's bad as she was. She's cut, like, way bad.
Yeah.
I got a couple stitches. I did have those stitches for a long time, though. They were supposed to dissolve. Anyway, that's way too much information.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you find out later on when Fern's an adult, she becomes a doula, and because she's like, I want people to be able to have birth the way they're supposed to, and not have to be cut or treated like, you know, they're just, you know.
So that part made me cry too. When in the like the after part, Fern grows up, she goes away, her baby's taken from her, and she's a doula. She helps other women give birth in like a way that I'm gonna cry, I can't handle it, in a way that's like beautiful and that she didn't get.
Yeah, she gives them the kindness and the respect that she didn't get. Yeah. Like, she says, you know, the knot cutting us, and we're going to take as much time as it takes. And you're going to be surrounded by people who are caring and loving. Yeah. And, you know, we're going to be celebrating what your body can do.
Yes.
Like, you're doing pretty amazing things right now. And instead of treating you like somehow, like she thinks, they're told that the reason birth is painful is because they're being punished.
Yeah. It's their fault.
It's so upsetting.
It's so upsetting.
Really sad.
Yeah.
But
sorry. Oh God, I can't.
It's a really hard book to watch. And the other thing too is they're told throughout the book, they're constantly told the same things. And Fern, all she wants, like, I think that's why it's great that she's the main protagonist. She just wants to go back to her old life. She just wants to go back to her old life. Mm-hmm. And she thinks, they keep telling her that that's what's going to happen. You give the baby away and you go back. And the truth is, there is no way on earth you could just go back to who you were before. No. You will never be that girl again or person again.
You can pretend.
You could, but she talks about that. Like, she does go back and she does join her clubs and stuff, but it's never the same. And how that pain of having to give up your child, the pain of being sent away by your family and treated like a dirty secret, the pain of how she was forced to give birth, like completely clinical, like they were operating on an animal.
Yeah.
She carries that for the rest of her life. She never has other children. It is completely, it's a pain she will always carry. And that's what Grady Hendrix said. He said he had one family member and it felt like they always carried this pain.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are people who heal from it. I think a lot of times they heal by reconnecting with their children, which I won't tell you which one, but one of the girls does. And it's really, really, really sweet. Beautiful. And I love that. Yes. And I needed that in my heart. And that's another thing I want to say about Grady Hendrix, too. His endings are really good.
Yeah.
Like, he thinks a lot about this. He doesn't ever get to the point where I feel like sometimes I feel like an author will write themselves into a corner, and then they're just like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Like,
well, with this book specifically, I was like, I don't know how we're going to feel good at the end of it. Like, for a long time, I was like, I don't know how this is going to feel good. But it does. It doesn't feel great, but there's a peace. There's a peace.
Well, and I think that's the thing, too, is that these girls went through, honestly, one of the most horrific things I think a teenager could go through, and that they survived. Yeah. They endured. They gave good things to the world. And they stay in touch, which they're told they're not going to do, but they do.
They do.
They make each other stronger, and I think what they experience could easily snap somebody in half. It could kill somebody. You know, it could destroy their spirit, and it nearly does. But they endure.
The woman who runs the house, that was her experience.
Yes.
And she went the extreme other way. Like, she had been pregnant. Her father locked her away till she had this baby. And then she went to run the house and she treated all those girls the same way she was treated. And
that's one of the things, too. There's this woman there. She's black. She does the cooking. Her and her sister doesn't really speak. She just whispers in her ear. I can't remember her name. But her name's Hagrid, and she's really hard. Like, she's really one of those people who's really hard. Like, she's telling the girls off the time, but you can tell she really cares about them. But she shows how she cares by the things she does, not what she says. Yeah. Like, she's a really cool character, and she's there for them. But at one point, they're trying to explain to her why they're so desperate for her help and how horrible the place is. And she says, this woman put a roof over your head. This woman gave you shelter when nobody else was willing to give you shelter. And as horrible as this experience is, you would think, well, without this place, their families might have just thrown them out in the street.
Absolutely.
And so you understand that even though this character who runs this house is horrible and the way she's treating the girls is horrible, in her own way, she feels like she's doing them a kindness. She's caring for them when nobody else will. And yeah, like all the characters are complicated. Like nobody is just being mean for the sake of being mean.
Except for...
that character's very selfish.
Yeah.
The librarian. So the librarian...
yeah.
We think that she's going to help these girls and liberate them. And she does have a coven. Yeah. They call them like the hippies in the woods. Yeah. She has this coven in the woods. But what's happening is, and he did talk to real covens like this, but they essentially, she is part of a coven where you get all of the women in your family's memories. So she can remember back to like early days, like her great grandmother. So she has all these people in her head at once, and she tries to explain that it's actually really beautiful, but she has cancer, and if she dies, they all die. And I do think there's something beautiful about that. Like these women, through her memories, are living on, and it's not just a memory, it's like she's experiencing it firsthand. However, sometimes to not lose a family line, they will force it on somebody. And they forced it on this one girl who didn't want it. She wanted to be with like her boyfriend or whatever, and it made her insane. And it's really, really tragic, and she can't even like feed herself properly or anything.
She can't do anything.
And that's what they're threatening to do to Fern.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, she has to either accept that this librarian lady is going to live inside of her. She's going to remember all these people, and again, having her autonomy completely stolen because her body's going to be shared by all these women, and they're not her family, so what does she care? Yeah. Or they're going to force her to do it, and it's going to be basically like, I guess, being schizophrenic, having all these voices competing for space in your head. Yeah, a lobotomy.
A lobotomy, thank you.
So, I mean, I thought it was really well written because I could see the desperation of this librarian character, and she does have moments where she tries to be kind to them, like, he doesn't just write her as a straight-up villain. She is scared, and she is desperate, and...
she's also terrifying.
But she is terrifying. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. The scene where she goes to the house at night. And even then, the nurse who had been a dick earlier, she's got a gun, and she's ready to defend those girls. Yeah. Or even the social worker who I really hated her when she was helping Rose. Rose basically is playing cards, and they tell her because I think it's Labor Day weekend
that they want her to.
They're saying because they don't want to ruin anybody's Labor Day plans that they're going to take her to the hospital now and induce labor. And Rose is like, "You're not doing that. I'm not going to have my baby right now and put my baby in danger because you don't want your weekend fishing trip interrupted.
Yeah, because you want to go golfing.
Yes, because you want to go golfing.
Right.
And so, like, I'm like, yeah, power to you, Rose. And
then her water breaks.
Yes. But yeah, the social worker, she gets so angry at her and shouting at her, and it makes me so mad. But then there are parts later on where you can tell, like, in her own way, she thinks she's doing the best she can, because she explains to them, like, you know, she says, like, how they'd have to pay the bill and how your baby could have all these opportunities. And I could see how that would feel. Like, you think, well, the worst thing I could do is give up my kid. And then you think, nobody will accept me. Nobody will hire me. Nobody will help me watch my kid. Yeah. How am I going to do that? And if I give him up for adoption, then they could have like all of these resources and stuff, but they also won't know who you are. You're encouraged to write Jane Doe on the birth certificate, so you don't even get that.
Yep. So that they can't come find you later. Yeah. Like it's just all given up. Yeah. It was just. That was a rough one.
Dougie Fred says, is it going to be a movie or a series? So I think this book just came out. It came out in January. I do know some of his other books are. I know Southern Book Club is supposed to be an HBO series. My Best Friend's Exorcism is a really terrible Amazon movie that I don't recommend. The book is fantastic. The movie sucked. And I feel like there was another one. Oh, Horror Store is going to be a show too.
That'd be fun.
So because, I mean, this one, it's got over a 4 average rating.
Does it?
On GOODREADS. I think because this is one of his best ones yet, I mean, maybe, but I don't know. It's also really, really heavy.
It is heavy, and it's really divisive. It's a really, like, it's a hot button.
Well, and the thing is, too, is a lot of people were saying, why did he have to be so graphic with all the birth stuff? Like, that's disgusting. And he wants you to know.
I think it's important. It was hard. Yeah. But I'm glad he did it.
Because this was all, like, you don't learn about this in school. This is all wiped away like a bad memory. And he wants you to know everything that happened to these girls. From the way they were talked to. The way they were basically manhandled in the hospital and stuff. Like, they deserve to have their story told. And that's what he wanted to do. He's like, these girls, like I want to tell their story. And so he does it through fiction and some stuff I think helps, like the witchcraft and stuff that gives you some distance. But, I think we need to know. We need to know the scary stuff.
If I didn't read this book and it was a show and I just watched it, I don't know how much I would have been able to handle.
I don't know either. Like, I don't know if this can be a movie.
I don't know either. Because I think about things like Lovecraft Country. I had to stop watching that.
I haven't seen it.
Well, it was really good, but like I know the atrocities that went on. I know how, Black Americans were treated in this country. And to see like that level of violence for violence sake in like entertainment, I couldn't handle it. And so I was like, this is not the show for me. I can't watch this.
And that's one thing I will say. Like, that's one thing, we've talked about how heavy this is. One thing I will say is he is very, very graphic on the birth stuff. Because that is specifically unique to this story. There is a character who has been essayed. We do not get any descriptions about how she was essayed.
No.
It is not like that.
No.
So if that's your trigger, yes, they're going to mention that it happened to her. You will not get a flashback to how it happened to her. Anything like that, anything that happened before they got to the home,
you don't really.
We're not getting flashbacks. So there's some brief stuff where Fern talks about, having sex with her boyfriend. But it's from Fern's point of view. Fern wasn't there. Yeah. This is about what happens to them at the home. And it's kind of interesting that way because they talk about how they basically were different people when they got there and they were different people when they left. And so it's almost like we don't need to know that stuff because, this is about the people they became while they were at this place.
Yes.
So I think it would have been too much for me if we got flashbacks of the girl being essayed and stuff. Like, there are books and stuff that I think that's the place for it. It's not gratuitous.
No.
He's telling you graphic stuff, but it's part of the story, and I think it's things you need to know how scary it was for these girls. Like, a lot of these girls are raised to be very prim and proper and stuff, and then the doctors would, like, just spread out their legs and shove their hands in them. They're like, oh, come on, you're not that modest, If you were able to keep your legs closed, you wouldn't be here to begin with. And you're just like, how dare you?
How dare you? Yes. Oh, my God, It's
a lot.
It's a lot. It's infuriating. But Grady Hendrix is the only person who could have written this book. Like, it's so beautifully done. It's so respectful. It's perfect. It's perfect. He did a really good job. I don't know how he does it.
I don't know how he does it either. He's just works magic.
Yeah, I think he sold his soul.
I don't know.
Something.
I think he's secretly a lady inside.
He has to be.
One thing I love about him, I want to know about his wife, because he always writes really cryptic dedications to her. Let's go down. Let's take a moment.
Let's take a moment and go down this road.
Okay, so in this book, he just seems lovely. I just want to meet him. He seems lovely and weird, and I love that. The dedication to Amanda. I think all of his books have been dedicated to Amanda, his wife. Amanda, you look at life through the eyes of a child. I don't know where you got them, and it's making me very uncomfortable. Please stop. This one. What did Amanda get in this book? I just want to meet Amanda. Amanda, you are with me everywhere. I see you where I go. You surround me always. Enough, though. I know exactly where I buried you.
Oh.
Grady Hendrix, why are you so weird, man? We love it.
Whoa.
We love it.
Yeah, it's great.
So this is a 5-star book.
Yeah.
Like, bar none, this is one of the best books I've read in a very long time. I will also say, like, Grady Hendrix for me went from being something where it's like, that was really fun. Like, Horror Story was really fun. I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to the next funny book he comes out with. And then My Best Friend's Exorcism, that was a 5-star book. I think Brandon mentioned it was for him too. That one really got me in my feels, especially because I was a kid during the 80s, and these are about 2 little girls in the 80s. But this book, like, it terrified me. That was
a really scary book.
This book terrified me.
Yeah.
It broke my heart. It was just so good. And honestly, he did it again with this book. Like, these books they're a lot, but I mean, I think the characterization and stuff in these books is like every bit as good as something,
I liked How to Sell a Haunted House, like, a lot. I thought it was really well done and really, really scary. But for me, Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying,
that one too,
really, really got under my skin. And then this book too, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls.
Even though there's like a common link, I've also read the Final Girl Support Group. Even though there's a common link, I feel like a lot of his books deal with a group of girls or women. I mean, even How to Sell a Haunted House, it shows up at the end, but there's a group of women. They're all very much about different things. And I think the book we read, it's kind of like about getting your power back, and also how sometimes, you are wounded at a young age and you will carry that. But that doesn't mean that your life is over.
Yeah.
You can make something beautiful out of the horrible things that happen to you that, it's not going to hurt this bad forever. Yeah. But it's also not going to go back. It's not going to just go away either. Some things leave a deep wound on you, and that's just part of life. And some people, I think it's just worse than for others. But then, like, How to Sell a Haunted House, it's kind of about, like, that family member that you don't get. Like, your brother that you don't get along with. You fucking fight all the time. Or that weird aunt. And how each of these people has their own story to tell. And maybe you don't know everything. Your mom that you don't understand. Your dad. All these people, how they all have their own story to tell. And that when we take the time to hear those stories, we end up appreciating these people more.
Yeah.
And how when we don't listen to those stories, they haunt us.
Yeah.
So that one's really cool. Southern Book Club, I think, how would you describe it?
Anybody can be a monster.
That's a good way of putting it.
Anybody can be a monster. And you can trust them implicitly and know that they're a monster and still choose to fraternize and be business partners with them. But they're still monsters, and you have to protect your children.
I think, that one, a lot of it was just about, like, what it meant to be a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me, like, fiercely protective of, like, I
think there's also a lot of trusting your instincts, because this woman believes there's basically a vampire in their town. The husbands aren't listening to them, but the other women do. And how, even if people tell you that you're, are trying to gaslight you or whatever, like, trust your instincts, because especially when it comes to our children, we know better.
Yeah. And it's your job. It's your job to protect your children.
Yes.
Yes.
And how, like, you don't have to be a person in great power or have a lot of money and stuff, that you can enact change and you can be there for the people that you care about. Yeah. And which is a lot of, like, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls too. Like, you could say, well, how can these girls make a difference? How can they help each other? They have nothing. They have no power. They're young. They're not strong. But as long as you are still here, you can enact change in this world, and you can make a difference. And sometimes all you can do is just keep breathing until tomorrow. And maybe you have to do it the next day and the next day. But if you keep doing that, you are making a difference just by being here. You are important.
Yeah. That's the condition of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Bring a box of tissues.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We talked like a long time about that, but
it was worth it. Okay, well, let's talk about what we're going to read next month.
Let's do it. I kind of have to pee.
Go take a break, and you want to set the stage? And then
you want to do that?
Yeah, do that. I'll get going.
Oh, start asking them to put their recommendations in. That takes a little while.
Put in your recommendations.
I'll be right back.
She'll be right back.
Do you guys want to come watch me pee? Let's go.
That's not the kind of channel we're running here. I'm all by myself now. This is really scary. So these are the books that we decided that we're going to read for next month. I picked The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. I haven't read any Brandon Sanderson, and this is a standalone. Brandon Sanderson, I thought it would be a good place to start with him because I don't feel like reading a 14-book series. Oh my God, you're the fastest peer in the West.
Kegels, woman.
Love it.
I did wash my hands.
I was just talking about the Brandon Sanderson book.
Okay.
So that's a fantasy. Obviously, we're going to be reading that. And then why don't you talk to them a little bit about Listen to Your Sister?
Well, then.
In the meantime, I'll talk about Pen Pal. So Pen Pal also started as a creepypasta. Or No Sleep Reddit. It was on
No Sleep Reddit, which is also where We Used to Live Here came from.
Yes. I started reading it the other night. Already having nightmares. So scary.
So, yeah, because of Kayla, the things that, I mean, we've been doing book club for a few years now. Yeah. I know what scares Kayla, and every time she tells me this fear of hers, I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to read Pen Pal. Because Pen Pal, I read not too long after it first came out.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
And it's stuck with me all these years later. I'm surprised it hasn't been a movie or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, originally it was posted as a series. And so it is a little blocky, and it's not like perfectly edited.
It kind of reads like a Reddit thread.
It really does, but it is really scary. And then Dathan Auerbach ended up doing another novel called Bad Men, which was very well written. But this book, I really think it deserves a polish, but honestly, kind of the scratch, like, you know, it does make it kind of feel like almost like the found footage of books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm enjoying it immensely, and it's already scary. And I just started it, and I don't like it.
So, Pen Pal. What essentially Pen Pal is about is this boy when he's in like kindergarten. The kids all have balloons that have the school's address on them, and the idea is that the balloon will find somebody in town or somebody somewhere who will write them a letter, and then all the kids start getting letters, except for our main character, who eventually starts getting really weird, blurry Polaroids. And then he starts getting them at his house. And this person will continue to be a part of this guy's life for a very long time. And he won't go away. He doesn't know who it is. This person is obsessed with him. It's terrifying. And it's very creepy.
Yeah, great. Love it. I'm excited.
So scary.
Yeah.
You talked about Frugal Wizards, right?
I only mentioned that it's Brandon Sanderson, it's fantasy, and it's a one-off. I haven't read any. It will tell you. I don't know anything about it.
On Goodreads, it's part of a series. It's part of a series of one-offs.
Yeah.
So you don't need to read anything else. I did start reading this. I'm doing the audiobook with one of those ones where it's a movie in your mind, and they have all these sound effects and stuff. It's kind of fun. All I got so far is this guy basically bought a dimension. And this dimension, because the dimensions take a while to get going, they're basically kind of the equivalent of like medieval England. He doesn't really know what went wrong, but he has zero memories of who he was, just that he likes to denote star ratings to things. He might have been some kind of reviewer. Okay. And he seems to know his way around like handling himself, like, you know, self-defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far it reminds me a little bit of like Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Okay.
So it's very much like a fish out of water thing, but so far it's really good.
Cool.
And it's not that long. Listen to Your Sister. So this one's kind of complicated. That's why I was like, I don't know what to say. So, the other thing I want to mention is Kayla picked Frugal Wizards because she picked it up, but it's also, if you like to get, I like to get all the challenges on Goodreads. Goodreads has bonus challenges now. It will get you the fantasy challenge. I can't remember the name of it right now.
I can't either.
It's not the Arrows one. It's the other one.
It's the other one.
Yeah, you'll get the fantasy challenge for that. They also have one right now that's a one for Black authors. You'll get that one if you read Listen to Your Sister, since it is a debut novel from Nina Vale. So this one, it says it's for fans of Jordan Peele, also Stranger Things, and it's supposed to be like a dark, like pitch black kind of comedy, which sounds cool to me, and I like Stranger Things. But it's supposed to be terrifying and big-hearted, which those are things I like. It says 25-year-old Calla Williams is struggling since becoming guardian to her brother, Jamie. Calla is overwhelmed and tired of being the one who makes sacrifices to keep the family together. Jamie, full of good-natured 16-year-old recklessness, is usually off fighting for what matters to him or getting into mischief, often at the same time. Dre, their brother, promised he would help raise Jamie, but now the ink is dry in the paperwork, and in classic middle child fashion, he's off doing his own thing, and through it all, the nightmare never stops haunting Calla, reoccurring images of her brother's dying that she is powerless to stop. When Jamie's actions at a protest spiral out of control, the siblings must go on the run, taking refuge in a remote cabin that looks like it belongs in a slasher movie. Rather than an Airbnb, the siblings now face a new threat where their lives and reality hang in the balance. The sister always warned them about her nightmare. Now they should have listened. So I really love this idea because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this in the show before, or the stream before, but I had a reoccurring nightmare. I want to say I had it for like years. It probably wasn't that long. It probably was like months. But for the longest time, I had this reoccurring nightmare every single night. I have 2 younger brothers. And in this nightmare, we're standing with like a Grim Reaper type person who's in a cloak. And they have a scythe, and my 2 brothers are there. And without saying anything, but I can hear what he's saying one of you has to die. And me being a little shithead, I was like, you should pick them. They're really naughty. And then he's like, because you're so awful and chose your brothers over you, I choose you. And so he takes the scythe and then he goes into my back, and then he flies me up, and then I wake up, and I was convinced that this was like real, because when I would wake up, the bed would be springing. It took me a long time to figure out that I was jolting up so hard that my bed was springing. So I literally thought it was a warning from some scary demon, and that I just got flung onto my bed. It scared me so bad. Like, I wasn't sleeping for a long time. Yeah. Really scared me. So that's kind of what this reminds me of. Like, how she's getting some dream that she thinks might have some kind of, like, prophecy to it, and it relates to her brother. So
crazy.
I think it sounds really, really good.
I think so too. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, this one just came out, and like we said, if you have trouble finding any of these books, usually there's things you can do through like Amazon and stuff. Like, if we have a copy of it, we can like figure out how to send you a copy of it. So just let us know.
Just let us know.
You can always DM me on Goodreads or the social medias, Facebooks, and so actually the Facebook one, if you message with the Gory B Movie one, I never respond to that. But you can message me on Instagram or Twitter or any of that. Okay, so did they pick a book?
No. Peeing in the Sink. That's not a book.
I did not pee in the sink. I peed in that potty.
Silver Nitrate by Sylvia Moreno Garcia.
That's so crazy that you said that, because I'm reading her new book called Bewitching right now.
Ooh.
So far it's pretty good.
The Thief of Always.
By Clive Barker. My mom read that one back in the day.
Chlorine. And
those are all good. So I think they should vote.
I think they should vote too. Can you make a poll?
I can. I'm full of the things.
Full of abilities?
Hold on. Whoopsie.
How do you do it?
Starting a poll. We're gonna do a poll. What should we... I don't know how to type without saying it out loud. I mean, I do.
You're doing it great.
Okay, so, The Thief of Always. Yep. That's one I've been wanting to read a long time. So, will you do me a favor and look up on your tablet the plot synopsis for these?
I sure will.
So we're calling it on these 3 books now. We will be presenting at the Oscars on March 7th. Hopefully. I guess Mountain Man too.
Oh,
but, well, no, because we did a Fairpoint Station one recently. These 3 people haven't picked one yet. So,
okay. So let me tell you about The Thief of...
Did someone say shameless plug? The Oscars are coming! These 2 lovely ladies will be presenting Best Horror Book of 2024. March 7th.
Be there or be square.
Square. What a dork. He's working really hard on the Oscars. It's going to be really cool. I know he got Onyx to be a presenter. Andrew Bowers.
Oh. Pretty cool dude. Thief of Always. Master storyteller and best-selling novelist Clive Barker creates an enchanting tale for both children and adults to cherish and retell. The Thief of Always tells the haunting story of Harvey, a bright 10-year-old who is suffering from the winter doldrums, and of a creature who takes him to a place where every day is filled with fun and Christmas comes every night.
I need the one from Heather. Heather hasn't done one either yet. So,
Chlorine. By Jade Song.
Okay. So the only criteria is they have to be weird. So horror, science fiction, fantasy, thrillers, though with thrillers, preferably some kind of supernatural element. But, as long as it's weird, we like it.
We're into it. In the vein of The Pisces and the Vegetarian, Chlorine is a debut novel that blurs the line between a literary coming-of-age narrative and a dark, unsettling horror tale, told from an adult perspective on the trials and tribulations of growing up in a society that puts pressure on young women and their bodies. Oh, that sounds familiar. A powerful, relevant novel of immigration, sapphic longing, and fierce, defiant becoming. Ren Yu is a swimmer. Her daily life starts and ends in the pool. Her teammates are her only friends, her coach, her guiding light. If she swims well enough, she'll be scouted, get a scholarship, go to a good school. Her parents will love her. Her coach will be kind to her. She will have a good life. But these are human concerns. These are the concerns of those confined to land with legs. Ren grew up on stories of creatures of the deep, the oceans, the rivers, ones that called sailors to their doom, ones that dragged them down and drowned them, ones that feasted on their flesh. Ones of the creatures that she's always longed to become, a mermaid. Ren aches to be in the water. She dreams of the scent of chlorine, the feel of it on her skin.
I'm gonna vote.
And she will do anything she can to make a life for herself where she thinks she can be free, no matter the pain, no matter what anyone else thinks, no matter how much blood she has to spill.
And Silver Nitrate, I know a little bit about that one. It's about a cursed film There was a lot of those last year.
Oh, like film, like a film.
Yeah, like a movie.
Because silver nitrate.
Yeah,
I get it.
So, Montserrat. No, sorry, I'm butchering that. So, this is a fabulous meld of Mexican horror movies and Nazi occultism, a dark thriller about the curse that haunts a legendary lost film and awakens one woman's hidden powers. I'm going to just call this person Mont, because I don't want to butcher their name. So, Mont has always been overlooked. She's a talented sound editor. She's left out of the boys' club running the film industry in 90s Mexico City, and she's all but invisible to her best friend Tristan, a charming, if faded, soap opera star, though she's been in love with him since childhood. Then, Tristan discovers his new neighbor is the cult horror director Abel Ureta, and the legendary auteur claims he can change their lives even if his tale of a Nazi occultist imbuing magic into highly volatile silver nitrate stock sounds like sheer fantasy. The magic film was never finished, which is why Ureta swears his career vanished overnight. He is cursed. Now the director wants Mont and Tristan to help him shoot the missing scene and lift the curse, but Mont soon notices a dark presence following her, and Tristan begins seeing the ghost of his ex-girlfriend. What? And they work together to unravel the mystery of the film and the obscure occultist who once roamed their city. Mont and Tristan may find that sorcerers and magic are not only the stuff of movies. I also want to know...
fun.
So that one's a horror by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I couldn't put her whole name on the poll because it had a limit on characters. That one is 323 pages. How long is Chlorine?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, this is important to me, dude.
I have
like how long they are.
256 pages.
How long?
256.
256. We
That's
like
not
that.
bad.
It's not bad. That's not bad. So far, the other one wasn't bad either. And then The Thief of Always is... And if we don't pick your book, we will get to it. Not a lot of people... More people are watching it, which is kind of cool. We've been doing this for 3 years. Not a lot of people watch. But this month, I'm so happy. So many of you guys read the books. Mm-hmm. So many of you are here right now.
Yes, we love it.
It's getting really exciting. So it used to feel like it was just us. But still, it's not like we have hundreds of people watching these streams. We're going to get to your book.
Yeah, we'll get to
So even if we don't pick it this month, don't think like, oh, they don't care. It's just, it might be next month or the month after. And then once everyone's picked one, then we'll cycle back, and then like Fairpoint can pick another one, or Mummy B Movie can pick another one, or Danny can. Yeah. So, you can also probably pick more books in the future.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Thief of Always, why can't I speak today, is 225 pages.
Perfect.
And it is a fantasy horror.
Great. So they're all pretty short.
So did you vote?
I didn't.
Mummy B Movie read Thief of Always.
Oh, nice. I do have, like, a love... I like Hellraiser. That's Clive Barker, isn't it?
Yeah, the story of the Hellbound Heart is. This one's, like, really fantasy and stuff. I don't know what to vote for. You don't have to tell me what you're voting for, but...
Well, I have to find the thing.
Dude, it's on the stream.
I
Are you even subscribed to the channel that you're on?
I'm just not on here very much. There we are.
Personally, I hate reading, so I just love...
What propaganda are you listening to, young lady?
That was Mr. Beast. What is happening? Oh my god, I hate you.
They all sound good.
They do all sound good.
Oh, I'm gonna look at their ratings too. So 421 for Thief of Always.
Okay.
And my vote's like not gonna make a huge. 369 for Chlorine. Okay. 69 is the sixth number.
Nice.
And Silver Nitrate is 359.
Okay.
All pretty good. All right, I'm making a vote. Okay.
Don't look.
I just voted. I'm not looking at your stuff.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, how long should we give them? I voted.
Let's just give it
Mommy B Movie and Fairpoint friend. She said bye to him. And she's here for the whole stream. Like,
way to go.
This is way past her bedtime.
Mommy. It's almost past my bedtime.
It's past my bedtime too. Actually, I have to go to night-night.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed. I still have an assignment I have to do.
I have to make dinner though.
I had a bowl of Raisin Bran Crunch.
Oh my gosh, you should stay for dinner.
It's okay. Doug made macaroni and cheese.
Oh yeah, he did. I read that earlier.
So maybe he can share some with me.
So how long have they had?
5 minutes.
Well, how many votes do we got? 11 votes.
I say we're good. That's
a lot of people are watching.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not a lot of people. I think about 11 people are watching.
Yeah.
So we end it?
Yeah, I say we end it.
Okay. He ate it all? Okay, so it looks like the winner is
The
Thief of Always! So yeah, they got 90%. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
There wasn't any votes for Silver Nitrate. Did you not vote for your own pick, Brandon? Brandon?
Because he also... Who voted... Okay, go... Oh, because that was... Who voted for Thief of Always? Oh, Robin.
Robin suggested
so
it. So
Brandon didn't vote for his own book.
I guess not. I've wanted to read Thief of Always for a long time, so I will reveal that is the one I voted for, just because I've been wanting to read that a long time. Also, I remember my mother had the hardback and it had this beautiful cover. So, but yes, I do want to read Silver Nitrate though, because I'm reading, like I said, Bewitching right now. Yeah. And I really like this author a lot. Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
I think that book was on a list for something previously, wasn't it?
Brandon voted for Thief of Always! Brandon!
Okay.
I adore Brandon.
Listen.
Brandon's like OG.
Follow your heart.
Unusual Book Club, too.
I know, right?
So then I don't feel bad that we didn't pick yours, because we promised you last month, because you were gracious and picked Mummy B Movies, that we were going to pick yours. But you voted for Thief of Always. We're giving you what you want.
We are giving you what you
want.
But
that means you or Heather are... I mean, guys, there's not a lot of people watch this. Yeah. You guys have been here. Like, it's also kind of, you know, we'll do a vote if there's a lot of people who haven't gone before. But it's most likely going to be you or Heather, because, you know, a lot of the other people who watch have already picked. Yeah. But, guys, we had so much fun with you guys. Like, discussing the books with you guys is really fun.
Laughed. We cried. Oh, my God. I know. It's so stupid.
No, I was sad, too. I got teared up.
I'm going to cry more thinking about that later. Anyways.
It was a good cry, though. Like, I feel like being a part of this girl's stories was important.
It was. Absolutely. It was a really important book.
Very important.
Everybody should read it.
Highly recommend it. I mean, I think even if you don't like horror... Yeah. You should read it. I mean, it's just...
If you're into, like, history at all?
Yes. Historical fiction. Yeah. It's fantastic. Coming of age stories, literary fiction.
Yeah. All the things.
Fantastic. That's just... Honestly, it makes me sad because I don't think this book's going to get a, you know, Nobel Prize or anything.
It
you know, but, like, Cormac McCarthy, I mean, not that he doesn't deserve it. He's fantastic. But he writes, like... anything, if you will. But horror authors don't really get considered for stuff like that. But he has gotten, I think, a Bram Stoker award before.
Oh, nice.
All right. We love you guys. So, we picked Thief of Always, so I will set that up. And then the next book club, it's always a Thursday. We're not very consistent just because life, you know. So sometimes we have different things going on.
We're busy ladies.
So the Thursday it's on tends to change. But it will be March 20th.
March 20th.
So we have a whole month. And like I said, do not think that you have to read all the books. No. Just read one of them. And then you can be a part of the discussion. And then you can hear what we thought of the other ones. But if you like to read a lot, like I do, then read all of them too. But the idea is that these are 4 very different books. Yeah. So at least, hopefully, one of them will appeal to you. If you cannot find them, let me know. Yeah, so we can always find places where you can get them for a good deal, or through like Kindle Unlimited or something. By the way, Kindle Unlimited is always doing free trials, so like there's something.
And we found Pen Pal. The audiobook is on YouTube.
That's right. So there isn't an official audiobook of Pen Pal, but if you go on YouTube, I think it's Mr. Creepypasta reads the whole thing. So it's basically an audiobook. Yeah. So pretty awesome.
There's always a way. There's always a way.
Yay! Mummy B Movie's gonna read Grady Hendrix. I adore him, Mom. I mean, even, Mummy, look at his cute pictures he takes for his book covers. Look how adorable he is. His little skull. Cute. He's just precious. We just love him.
Oh, yes. And then we'll see you for the Ass Scares.
And the Ass Scares, March 7th. So the next time you will see us is on Horror Addicts for the annual, I think it's the 8th or the 7th annual Ass Scares, where... a lot of people vote on awards, and you guys nominated them, and then different people are presenting, and we're going to be presenting Best Book. So,
because that's our job.
Yeah, that's like our thing now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And like next year, you guys, when they do this, one of the options on that, the ballot is, I didn't read any of these. You guys will have read a lot of these. You will have read some.
So you'll be able to vote and vote with honor.
Yeah. With honor. Yeah. I like that.
Thank you.
So we'll see you on Horror Addicts March 7th, and we'll be back here for Book Club on March 20th. If you want any updates or anything, I will remind you over on Goodreads, so make sure you're part of the Goodreads group. The link is in the doobly-doo down below.
Sounds great.
And until we meet again,
blessed be.